So we don't have a quorum. We have a couple members that are on their way in traffic. So we're going to wait a few minutes, probably 10 minutes, and then convene the meeting. And I know everybody's hot, and I'm sure facilities is working on the heat. What can I say? Okay, so thank you. We'll wait a few minutes, probably 10 minutes, and we should have two more people here. Thank you. You can feel free to get up and schmooze them. Call to order this special call meeting of the Finance Administration and Economic Development Committee. And we do have a quorum, so, well, Sarah, would you take the roll, please? Mr. Lawson's online.
Councilmember Glover? I see you. Okay, there you go.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Bartholomew?
Here.
Chairman Passmont is absent. Councilmember Dawson?
Here.
Committee Vice Chair Tabernick?
Present.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Howard?
Here.
Committee Chair Lawson?
Mark Lawson online and present, and I am going to allow Ms. Tabernick to run the meeting since I'm online. I apologize for being late.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll second.
All right, moved by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Dawson. And we have minutes attached, so I presume everyone read them. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
No, ma'am, there are no minutes.
Oh, we have minutes from the other meeting in here. They're in the back somewhere, so. Okay, take that one off. Number 5's gone. No, there were minutes here. Okay, citizen comments. We have any comments? Anyone want to speak, sir?
No, ma'am.
Oh, peace and quiet, yes. All right, Assistant County Administrator report.
I think are you reading on the right one?
Ms. Tabernick?
I'm reading this one right here.
You should have a new, a packet at your desk, not one from the draft agenda.
I have so many papers on here.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, you changed it, so we will throw those away. Okay. All right, item number 6, Beaufort County Compensation and Classification Study. Oh, we're anxiously awaiting this. Thank you, Catherine Mead.
Yes, thank you all for
Yes.
having me today.
What is
I've
this?
got a short presentation I'll share with you. I do believe it's in your packets as well. Today, we're going to go over kind of where we are with the ongoing class and comp study that the HR department is conducting in conjunction with an external consultant. So, there we go. Quick agenda, we'll just do a quick introduction of the company that we are using as our consultant, talk about the project scope, the steps of the project, and I also wanted to highlight which target areas that we used when we did our external salary survey, and then open up the floor for any questions and answers that you may have. So most of you are aware, every 4 years, by way of county ordinance, we do consult or partner with an external consultant to complete a comprehensive classification and compensation study. We went through the RFP process earlier this year and selected Management Advisory Group International, also known as MAG. They have a proven track record in providing in-depth compensation studies and human resources management. They've been doing this for 25 years and have served more than 40 states. They have worked with local government, state government, school districts, and many others. And they have also completed over 600 similar studies to what we've asked them to work with us on, including some counties and municipalities in the state of South Carolina. So the project scope that we have them for is to review all of our job titles across 41 departments. It's approximately 825 full-time employees and 110 part-time position or employees. We have roughly 360 positions, job titles that they are reviewing. So they're looking over our compensation plan. We have worked with them to describe some challenges we've had with recruitment and retention across the county. Brought up some departments that you all are aware of with detention center and EMS, and then some others with the under Chuck's group, I think, and Patrick's group as well. So we've made sure that they are aware of some issues that we do have. They will be developing and conducting a comprehensive compensation survey and then provide us a new salary wage report. They will also provide implementation strategies and calculating the cost of those implementation strategies for us, and I do have a preliminary number that I will share with you today. They're going to make recommendations for best practices. We already got a preliminary report from them that included some policies that I eventually would like to put forth for approval. It really nails down how do we move people up within the scale, how do we manage this plan that we hopefully are going to be able to approve. Giving us policies about supplementing individuals that get certifications, maybe further their education, transfer, also addressing even temporary interim statuses to have some concrete numbers and a scale so we're consistent across the board in how we are compensating our employees and our workforce when they do make these certain moves throughout their career with the county. And then, of course, providing recommendations on, as I mentioned, keeping up with the study and the integrity of the study. The classification scope of work, again, they're just reviewing all of our current job titles. We are going to host individual department head meetings with MAG consultants so they can express any concerns that they have in their departments. So it's unique versus what we experience countywide. They will also provide updated job descriptions for us. And then they will also make sure that we are compliant with the Fair Labor Standard Acts, ensuring that these positions are classified correctly to be non-exempt or exempt. In other words, hourly or salary. This is a little smaller, I'm sorry, but some steps to success. Step one, we have completed. This was us meeting with MAG along with John Robinson, the interim county administrator. We provided them all the data that they needed with our current pay scales, our current job descriptions, and all of our current employee data. Step two has been completed. They came on site and hosted several meetings for a week and invited all county employees that are in our current compensation and classification plan to attend these meetings. So the employees can hear, what is a comp and class study and how do they conduct these, and also introduce them to what they call a job profile questionnaire. It was a pretty lengthy survey for the employees to tell the consultant in their own words, what is it that they do day in and day out. There was also an opportunity for the supervisors to review that behind the employees. The supervisors could not overwrite anything that the employee put in there because they want to hear the full scope from the employee without any interference from anyone else, but these supervisors were allowed to make additional comments. At that point, step three, they reviewed everything and started doing step four, they reviewed everything and started doing their salary survey with the external market that we identified to be competitors of ours, and I'll tell you, they were all tier 1 counties and some of our neighboring local municipalities. Step 5, this is the preliminary report that we got last Friday. So it's about a 272-page report that my staff is working tirelessly to vet and go through, make sure nothing's standing out of concern with us. We will return any information back to them. They will rerun that report again. And then we also have scheduled on the week of May 13th through the 17th for them to meet individually with department heads, as I mentioned earlier. So then they will return that preliminary report back to us. And once we have all gone through it and worked with finance and you all, we will have a final presentation from MAG themselves to come present. The last information I told you that I would share is these are the folks that we used for our target areas. We used our surrounding neighbors, and then we used tier 1 counties. So the magic number that I have right now,
Yes.
it's a 3-prong approach. They are recommending a 4% COLA across the board. They are recommending, obviously, to bring any employees up to the minimum level that may be below the new pay grade that they have assigned. And then the third approach is to accommodate for any internal equity issues that we have. So with all three of those approaches being done at one time, it's going to be approximately anywhere between 6.5 and 7.5 million.
Say that again?
6.5 to 7.5 million.
If we did all three.
If we did all three. We have the flexibility, 4%, we can choose to bring that maybe to a 2.5 or a 3%, and that shaves off a little bit there. The one prong we can't mess with is bringing everyone up to the minimum if we agree with the new pay scales. We have to get everyone at least to minimum. But we can be flexible with the COLA, and we can be flexible with the internal equity adjustments. And just some rough numbers, we had 1,100, when we ran these numbers, of course, we've had new folks come on, we have people transition out. So we're looking at approximately 1,109 positions that were surveyed. 631 of those would need to be brought up to minimum, and 446 would need to have an adjustment for internal equity.
Could you repeat those numbers again?
Sure. You want to go back to the 6.5 to 7.5?
No, the
Okay.
1,109.
So we got approximately 1,109 positions that were surveyed. Out of those, 631 would need to be brought up to the new minimum of the new pay grades that are assigned. And 446 would need to be adjusted for internal equity. I will let you know that the consultant told us Friday that in terms of our external equity, we're pretty good. We are pretty close to the mark. I think it was like maybe less than 1%. Where we were struggling the most in the county is internal equity, making sure that it's no compression building up and people are where they are or where they should be within the scale.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Ms.
an
Howard.
example of that would be if someone had been in an office for 10 years and then the new person was making more money than
Correct,
the one that had been there for 10. Okay.
correct, or very close to.
Or close to.
So you said, so there's 3 steps. So you said we could do them not all at once.
Correct. So what I would like to go back and ask MAG to do is give us 2 or 3 options for implementation just to bring the numbers down, but still maybe try to hit all 3, just not at the full rate, and maybe look at a 2-year implementation.
So if I were to, so do you have numbers for each of these 3 steps individually?
I do.
That would be great.
To adjust us to the minimum was 2.3 million. To do the flat 4% adjustment, which again, we could consider 2.5 or 3%, but at 4%, it's 2.3. And then to adjust to our internal equity is 2.7.
And so you'll be coming back to us with recommendations from this company on how to implement this maybe over a 2-year period of time?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for
I
Ms.
have
Mead?
one other question.
Yes.
Which elected offices were part of the analysis?
All elected office were included in the analysis with the exception of public defender, sheriff, and magistrate.
Thank you.
Anybody else question?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That was great news to start. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead,
Can you
Mr.
hear me?
Glover. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I'm glad Alice asked the question. So you're telling me that the solicitor and the public defender, and who else were not included?
Sheriff and magistrate.
Right, not the solicitor.
Not the
We
solicitor.
do not run their payroll.
So 3 were not included. Okay.
I do remember the public defender office requested me in our comp plan. Is that not, did we drop them, or what's the status on that?
So there are ongoing discussions with the public defender's office, up to yesterday even on that. And I would probably lean on Brittany to maybe describe some findings that she has found with that and what our steps forward are to get them included into the comp and class study.
Not want to be included, or is it because we are saying they're not eligible to be included? What's the status? What's the story of that?
So if recollection calls, because this has been an ongoing conversation for a few years, they had expressed,
I'm raising
yeah, they had expressed interest to be a part of the class and comp study, I believe, 2 years ago. But then some communications came up with a team with included legal, myself, finance, administration, and public defender, where based on state code, it sounded as though that they could not participate and had to be in a state merit system. But just as recently as Monday or Tuesday of this week, we found out that the state merit system had dissolved in the mid-90s. And so that's why we are trying to get everything straightened out so we could put them in our class and comp. So I would say when I come back with the next update, we will most likely have them included in the class and comp.
Ms. Ward, you want to chime in on that? Mr. Glover, anything else? Okay, Mr. Lawson? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Nope,
you.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was great news, okay. All right, item number 7. A resolution to commit funds to be provided from Beaufort County to the Technical College of the Lowcountry for the construction of the Arthur E. Brown Regional Workforce Training Center. And here are our presenters. Again,
Our
you're like-
presenters.
You're like family coming back again.
We do,
We're comfortable here.
we're comfortable. In
Okay.
fact, we're not, we don't have a presentation. I think you all saw our presentation a week or so ago. What we hope to do today is just give you a quick recap of what the request is, and then field any questions you might have remaining. Mary Louise Carnes, my Vice President for Advancement, is going to do the talking.
Just to quickly recap, the Arthur E. Brown Regional Workforce Training Center, 50,000 square feet, and empowering 850 additional students, enabling us to expand our programs, supply chain logistics, robotics, composite materials, advanced manufacturing, putting every year about 120 graduates in those programs into our local workforce. Total project cost is $26 million. Total construction cost is estimated at $20 million. We have $10 million of the state. The college is putting forth $2.5 million of our own resources, and we're asking Beaufort County to support the Workforce Center at $7.5 million, making that a multi-year commitment. It does not have to be, we're not asking for one lump, $7.5 million, but it could be a multi-year commitment.
And, Mr.
Go ahead.
What did you say the economic impact is going to be on that once it's established? Was it 4.4 million yearly?
It's $4 million annually. Right now,
Annually.
we estimate the college's economic impact to be at $150 million annually after the culinary school. What the Regional Workforce Training Center would be at another $4 million annually after that. And the more it grows, the more that impact.
Thanks.
Any other question?
I'd just like to make a comment. I attend their board meetings as often as I'm invited, which is often, as liaison. I'm very supportive of this. I understand there may be an amendment to our packet that Councilman Bartholomew is going to propose, but the time is right, and we need this to continue to be the regional influence for our students, and I never pass up a chance to tout the program that they have for high school students also to attend the technical college while they are completing their high school degree, which is a great program in the many things that we need done in our county and the surrounding counties. Thank you.
Any other comment or question at this point? I do want to ask Mrs. Christmas the staff recommendation to discuss that. I presume everyone's aware of it.
Yes, ma'am, they are, and that will come a little later when Mr. Chico comes forward with
Okay.
his presentation. That he will explain what our.
With the bond, okay. And you know what the staff recommendation is, she's met with you.
Ms. Ms.
Yeah.
Christmas explained it.
So just for the public, the staff recommendation would be to fund the request at $6 million and include amount in bond issuance in the fall of 2024 and direct TCL surplus revenue over their current year's budgeted revenue to be used for the annual bond payment, which will begin fall of 2025, thus no fiscal impact on taxpayers.
Well, that's great.
Now, was that 6 million a typo in the packet? Because the resolution does say 7.5.
And so that was the question. The ordinance, we're not sure where it came from.
It's a resolution.
This time to explain.
Okay.
Yeah, resolution. You want to jump on that one?
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
the resolution, it is recommended to approve the resolution at $7.5 million. And the reason why is there are other funds that come in throughout the years and we'll get into it with the millage
With the
when we
yeah.
present the millage presentation. So, we had reassessment year last year. That's resulted in, a big question mark as to, how much is this really going to bring in tax and property tax revenue? And actually, we're hitting surpluses right now. So, with that being said, their millage that's attached to their fund will accumulate enough money to bridge that gap of $1.5 million over a 3-year period. So that's where the excess is coming from. So I would recommend passing or approving the resolution for the
Okay.
commitment for 7.5 over a 3-year period, but then the bond issuance should cover $6 million.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor and discussed.
Thank you.
You want to amend?
Yeah, I do have a motion to amend the resolution. I see in here in the number 2, where it says calendar year 2027. I'd like to amend that to read fiscal year 2027 rather than calendar year.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any question or discussion on that? Question from you guys on that one? You're good with it?
We're
You
good.
too?
We can live
Yeah.
very
Okay.
well within that. Thank you.
We're grateful.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to change the resolution. Number 2, it is the intent of Beaufort County Council will meet 7.5 million financial commitment by the end of calendar year. It should say end of fiscal year, 2027. All right? Can I have a vote on this? Is there any objection?
Well, this is a vote on the amendment, right?
On the amendment, yes. Oh, yeah, you have to go by the hierarchy, we learned.
Thank you.
Vote on the amendment to change it to fiscal year. Any objection? Okay, no objection, it'll pass by no objection. And now back to the original motion.
There you go.
We just took a class on motions, everybody, so I just want you to, that's why he's looking at me. So now the original motion, and it's already been moved and seconded and discussed. So any objection to the original motion as amended? Nope, all right, it will pass.
Can I ask who was the first and second? I'm sorry, I just had.
On the first motion.
On the first one?
I'm not sure there was a.
I don't think there was.
motion.
Yeah,
No,
I thought it was you.
no, I didn't make a motion. I
Okay.
just made
So
comments.
moved and
And
I'll
so
second.
seconded, so move it.
That's what I thought.
I just made
Okay.
comments.
All right, you guys are good to go.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
So this will move forward to council as a
Moves
recommendation.
forward to council as a
that
recommendation.
Council adopt the resolution.
For May 13th. All right. Item 8. So this will be fiscal year 2025 budget presentations from our fire districts and the University of South Carolina Beaufort. Valerie, you're going to facilitate this, or? And our fire districts have great news today, so they're gonna be real easy, then they're gonna go have lunch or dinner, whatever it is.
I believe, Bluffton is gonna go first, so Chief Boulware.
Okay, Chief Boulware, always welcome to speak.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Welcome. Good to have you here.
Everybody should have a copy of our budget proposal. This budget proposal went through our fire board approval process. We had a workshop on March 19th where the board was shown the budget. And on April 23rd, they had a motion to approve and adopt and signed a resolution and submitted it to all the county council. This resolution includes no tax increase for the citizens of Bluffton. We are keeping our flat rate of 26 for the district. We did move a little bit of debt millage up to our operations. to include a 10.74% increase in our value for the mill value. We're looking at a total 12.92% increase in our revenues. And we're looking to increase our budget to 13.95% of the original FY '24 budget. This will help fund our new fire station that's soon to be constructed and some personnel staffing issues that go along with that. We also went through a comp study, and we're looking to make some changes to our personnel salary.
That's good news for the taxpayers, no increase.
Absolutely. So Bluffton continues to grow leaps and bounds, and we're trying to stay up as fast as we can.
Is that possible, really, to stay up with it? Yeah.
We're trying very, we're getting innovative, so.
Anybody have a question for Chief Boulware? He's pretty.
Not that, I just want to comment that you've done an incredible job, and thank you coming here year after year, not asking for more money.
Oh, well, thank you so
You're
much.
living within our means. I wish all of us could do that.
Well, we're gonna try.
Okay,
Thank you, Chief, that was great.
Yes.
all right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Burton Fire District Chief Harry Roundtree. He's gonna come up with a smile, too.
Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to quickly say thanks to the hardworking group at Finance for helping us get our estimated mill value this year. We also, I'll try to keep it as brief as I can, we dropped 4.7 mills last year. We went from 77.7 down to, we levied this year 69.1 for ops and 3.9 for debt, for a total of 73. The estimated mill value for us this year is 101,098, and based on that value, we are confident that we can operate next fiscal levying the same millage as last year and offer a budget with no tax increase. We have a few small items I want to make sure that council is aware of. We do plan on having a 5% COLA this year, and we do plan on adding 1 firefighter per shift, which give us a total of 18 per day, per shift. In our capital improvements, a couple more things just to mention. We do have a few items on our capital improvements list. 12 sets of protective clothing, which we intend to use prior contract funds to pay for. We also intend on utilizing funds from our debt service fund and from our impact fees to make down payments on the 2 fire trucks that we have on order. These down payments made throughout the production period allows us to finance a lower final amount when the trucks are ready for pickup. One truck is due May of 2026 and the other is May of 2028. We do not have any capital improvement expenditures requiring taxation this year. And I would love to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Chief, what's the cost of a fire truck these days?
I somewhat anticipated that question. It depends on the components and obviously the vendors sometimes, but essentially they run between, for pumpers, between 800,000 and $1 million.
That's for the full-size one,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
I had one question. Is it delayed because they're hard to get manufactured?
It is insane right now, and it's actually been since COVID. The 2026 truck, we contracted in December of '22, and it was a 36-month production period. The last truck, the commission contracted just last month, it's on a 4-year production period. It doesn't take any longer to build a fire truck. It still takes about 6 or 8 months for them to actually build it, but you have to kind of get in line. I'm going to be replacing, the 2026 truck is actually replacing a 2012 pumper, which will have 14 years of frontline service. And the 2028 truck is going to be replacing a 2015, which will have 13 years of frontline service. Both of those apparatus will move to reserve, and then my much older reserves will be put out to pasture, basically.
So did we get a 2022 price on that pumper? That's not coming till 26?
They had to, well, no, ma'am. I'm
No,
afraid
I
that they, in fact, the contracts that we have with our current vendor is willing to accept a potential 5% increase in costs, and anything beyond that, I may have to come back to, with my commission and adjust prices, but, and then each vendor is different in that, but,
Chief,
yes, sir.
the COLA increase and the uniforms and the down payment on the trucks, you're gonna do all this within your proposed budget? No,
Yes, sir.
no COLA increase, no
No, we're using
No
the
mill
same
increase.
millage as last year, and based on the estimated mill value that we got from finance, which was, like I said, a ton of hard work. They did amazing for us. We were able to live within those means, so we do not anticipate or will not have a tax increase this budget cycle.
Well, I want to thank you and your staff, all the employees at the Burton Fire District for the service you provide for the citizens of the district.
Thank you, sir.
And doing it all at a cost of no increase to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. I know anyone who watches this meeting will say, that's great, no increase. And you
Thank
can
you.
still provide great service,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's the best news.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
All right, Tufusky Island Fire District Chief Shane Camparetto. Love the name, Camparetto.
Said it perfectly.
I know, well, I'm Italian.
Well, hi.
Hi.
Hope everybody's well. I'd like to also say thank you to Denise and her team for their hard work. The Fusky's a unique animal, like you guys know, and so the cost of everything is inflated over there. However, with our good mill value this year, we're going to move our operations budget. We'll be able to drop that, and we just replaced 3 demos and was able to take immediate delivery of these trucks and for a payment that starts next year. So I replaced 3 trucks that was over 25 years old with 2, which serves our purpose on Defusky. So in saying that, we dropped our operation budget to 58 mils from 61.2, and we're asking for a debt mill of 4.2 mils to pay for the payments of these trucks. It's overall a 1 mil increase of overall tax for our taxpayers. To understand that, it's for a $500,000 home, it's a $20 addition to their tax bill next year. Our commission unanimously approved it, and they thought it was a great time to get our trucks because they were over 25 and 30 years old. And it's the first new trucks we've had in a very long time. And I thank the commission personally and Chairman Brunnen for supporting our fire department and our vision for growth. And also, we did a pay study as well, because we have to. We require the same classes and everything. And we had to get a pay scale adjustment, and we were able to do that, even dropping our operations millage. So any questions for me?
I am stunned you have a pumper that lasted 25 years. We can't have a car that lasts 25
Well,
years.
it's hard, and that's the problem. That's why we could drop our operational
Yeah.
budget, because the parts are only held for so many years.
Correct.
And NFPA recommends a lifespan on these trucks. So 25 years, they're supposed to get rid of them. But the parts were getting hard to come by, and it just the cost, it was not suitable. And we got lucky and found 2 demos that only had 80 some miles on each of them, and it fit our purpose perfectly. So,
And you took them over the island by barge.
yep, I put them on my back.
You took them on that.
And I swam with them, yes.
Wow.
So any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you so much, Chief. Okay, Ladies Island, St. Helena Fire District, Chief Bruce Klein, you're up.
Madam Chair, members of council,
More good news?
I'm proud to stand in front of you today and say that we have no tax increase.
Yay.
Again, thank you to finance. Our mill value has increased considerably, and I see that for the next couple of years. So I'm hoping that we're going to continue to be able to increase services and not increase taxes. So our mill rate last year was total of 42.7. It is 42.7 this year. In my budget, you'll see that we've adjusted a debt, 2.2 from debt up into operations, and that still increased our debt payment by $7,505. We are seeing an increase in revenue by $560,000. Again, no tax increase. We will be adjusting salaries. We'll be giving some incentives for EMT, intermediate paramedic, and we've increased our operations by $105,500 to keep up with all the increases that we see. We buy fuel, we pay electricity, we pay for water. We see all those increases. So again, the fire district and commission is very pleased to present you a budget with no tax increase.
And how old are your pumpers?
Oh, some of them are very old. We actually signed a contract last year for 5 new pumpers. And
And they're coming when?
someday.
Okay.
No, they're, when we signed the contract, it was somewhere between 24 and 27 months. I think today, if you were to sign a contract, you're looking at 40 months for delivery. What some vendors do is they put an escalator into the contract. And as prices of steel and different commodities increase, they can't absorb that. So instead of coming to us at the end when we're ready to pick up the trucks and say, hey, you owe us an additional $300,000, there's an escalator. But if you don't use the escalator, that's refunded back to you. We would just roll that rate into a payment and continue on.
Chief Klein, I do have a question for you. Can you expand on those incentives that you were talking about for the EMTs?
So we're one of the last departments to require EMT. We have 22 EMTs, or ENT intermediates and paramedic. We plan on implementing that over a 3-year period. We have put additional money into to overtime this year to start having at least 1 EMT class in-house per year to get all our staff to a minimum of EMT. So the incentive will be for the current guys and gals that are EMTs, and those that get the training in this next fiscal year, they'll receive the incentive pro rata share when they get the certification.
I think that's a great idea.
Any other questions?
I had one quick one. I should know the answer. Do you still have the intergovernmental agreement with the Beaufort Port Royal Fire for support on Lake
Yes.
Allen?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's working out well?
So it is, and if you see in my budget, we pledged $350,000 of that contract fee.
Okay, thank you.
Great news, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you guys are just light today. This is great. So now we have Sheldon Fire District Chief Buddy Jones. Can I
Good
call you Buddy?
afternoon, council. Sheldon Fire District will not raise any millage either this year. We have a $105,909 increase in our budget, which is about 5.5%, but we'll be able to do it with our new millage. The biggest thing we're gonna do is we're doing like a 6%, 6.33% salary adjustment, because we are probably one of the lowest paid fire districts in the county, so we're trying to get that up. Besides that, we're not doing anything new, no new debt or anything. So if you got any questions, I'll ask, you know.
How old are your pumpers?
Oh, I got some, well, my oldest one's a 99.
99? Oh, 19.
1999.
1999, not 1899.
She thought it was 99 years old.
Yeah.
No,
that's right.
no. We just bought a new one last year.
Okay.
Oh, good, thank you. Any questions?
Chief, again, thank you also for putting forth a budget where you're going to continue providing the level of service for the citizens of Sheldon Township at the rate that you have been, at no cost, no mill increase. So on behalf of the citizens of Sheldon Township, I commend you and your employees for the
Thank you.
services that you do provide.
It's a team effort.
I know.
It takes a lot.
You do a good job.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Denise, Valerie, appreciate it.
Sarah, do you have the thing for the fire department, Light the Night? Brenda put it on there. I just want to remind everybody, you guys have May 1st to the 5th. And I want to thank Finance for all the work they did with all of you. That's great.
We enjoyed them.
You enjoy, well, they look like a great bunch of guys, so I guess they would be fun.
We had them all together at one time and spent about 4
Oh,
hours.
you did?
4 hours, consecutive hours together.
Oh, wow.
Wow, good for them, good for you. I got this from Chief Boulware, just to remind everybody, this is to light up all 50 states to show that we remember fallen firefighters. May 1st through the 5th. So thank you for all your service and for anyone that we've lost in the past. Thank you, chiefs. Appreciate you coming. And now you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting.
That's okay.
Thank you.
They want to go to dinner.
Yeah, they want out of here. I get it. Thank you. Dr. Panu, you are up, Chancellor for the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. Always happy to see you, too.
Thank you so much. Chair, council members. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present before you. Before I jump in, I'd love to introduce a few of my colleagues who are here with me. Beth Patrick is our CFO, CBO, and CIO, see all the other important areas for our institution. And we have Pinky, who is our Assistant Vice Chancellor for finances and personnel operations. And we have the newly minted Dr. Dick Stewart, who serves as Vice Chair for the USCB Education Foundation. And I'll explain a little bit too why we may call on any of them to answer questions or to provide additional comments. Under the advice of Denise, we're constrained in time, so the first, we'll jump to slide 9, but we've provided each one of you with copies of the first slides because they really highlight some of the accomplishments of USCB and a little bit of the history, and it saves us a little time. If we have time at the end, we'd love to delve more into it so that it gives you an appreciation for what you all have invested in and continue to. So thank you for that. Before I jump to slide 9, I want to give a little perspective. We are getting ready at USCB to celebrate the 20th anniversary of USCB becoming a 4-year degree granting institution. That happens in 2004. And what's of great significance to us with that regard is that the Bluffton campus was largely built because of the TIF that this body approved and was able to facilitate. So otherwise, we would not really have USCB as we know it today. And for that, we not only appreciative, we really think that there is a model for us for future growth as we explore the bright future ahead of us. In addition to that, you should also know that that TIF was paid for in 9 years instead of the 30 years that it was projected to be done in. And again, a great story of success and investment on your part. So to keep to Denise's advice, let's jump to slide 9 and right to the bottom line of what it is that we're requesting. Since I'm following all the distinguished gentlemen that you saw here, I do not want to depart from the pattern that they have set. So you will see as our first request, we're asking for the same, I want to emphasize the word the same, 1.1 mil that we have received from previous budget ordinances, and we are absolutely grateful and we thank you for that. In the second slide, you'll see that we will show you how important that mill is, not only in that our overall general and education and general expenditure, this appropriation contributes somewhere around 5 to 6% of that. So it's another way of putting that is if we didn't have it, we would have a cut of about 6% in overall just operation. That's not something that we can sustain whatsoever. But that second slide also gives you a rundown not only of the flow of the funds, but how it covers all the different areas. I should also mention to you that in 2017, the percentage, the number of students that we have at USCB from Beaufort County was at 653 or thereabout, and we are now over 820 plus. So we are serving our local students and increasingly well, and we are doing that in part with the funding and the appropriation that we receive from the county. So you can see all of that. Our second request is to continue the conversation that we started way back in 2019. I first came to this body to propose a joint venture with regard to the Convocation Center. And the Convocation was a multi-purpose facility that would not only deal with areas such as athletics and commencement and other large events that we do at the university, but would also provide the county as a partner opportunity for us to be able to have larger events for which we don't currently have the facility here in this area. In addition to, of course, things and the big events like Emergency Response Center, of which USCB operates at, or when we had mass vaccinations, we just did not have all of the facilities that we could have for those things. So there were emergencies, there were tourism, there was utilization of that. It's just a multi-purpose facility that was envisioned. And a proposal of a 50-50 venture, 50% from the state and the other from the county, was the basis for which we started pushing for funding year after year with regard to the state. As a matter of fact, then Chairman Stu and Senator Davis met in order to firm up that commitment and push forward that agenda. Last year, fast forward here, we requested some funding for the design money. And again, with a 50-50 proposition, you all approved $300,000, and we would put the $300,000 in order to position us to get started with the design for that particular facility. And you had funded the original study that provided information regarding the economic impact in a region, et cetera, which we had done. The little bit unfortunate situation is that the original study had us at a facility deemed to be around $48 million. And time has passed, and you know what has happened to the cost of construction.
Yes.
And that was reassessed, and the latest assessment will put it at $72 million. State has provided for us up until now 26 that we have accumulated over a period of time. And we're hoping this year to get another 11.5 million if what the House and the Senate have thus approved so far comes to pass through. So that will give us about, from the state perspective, something close to $38 million that would go here. So in addition to asking for the 300 for the design so we can get going with it, we would like to continue the discussion for establishing the county's portion of the funding for this. And I know in many conversations that we've had, the issue of the mechanism for funding has come up, and I know there's some ideas that have been floated, of which one of them, I think, Dick, I'll invite you to at some point, just give me a couple minutes to be able to, hear out. But we've come at that point where we do need to set that so that we can get things in motion and we can close the loop with our legislative representative. And so we would be asking for the capital funding with regard to that. The next slide just shows you some rendering that we have of the Convocation Center. These are not really the design work, they're just kind of conceptual rendering that are there. I have a few more of copies here that would have a little bit more than what you see in that picture here. I'll be happy to pass that around. so you can see what those rendering are. I also want at this point to make you aware of some of the challenges that we are going to be tackling in the years ahead. We know that the energy utilization of the facility is absolutely critical, and our ability to address that for all of our facilities, and particularly the aging one, is going to be a critical future project. We have the need of bringing some of our athletic fields that are currently right now off campus, on campus, particularly talking about baseball and softball and track and field, and that's absolutely critical. We have a need for housing in Hilton Head campus, and I'm just listing a few of the things, and you can see more details on that. And many of those, we're going to other places, but there is potentially, especially with the field, opportunity for us to really bundle what we're doing with the Convocation Center, and we can have more conversation on that. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of the request that we're putting before you and some of the projects that we have in the future. But let me ask Dick to please come and join me and share some thoughts on these initiatives.
Thank you. I'm going to pass out a couple of things that I'll refer to if you don't mind. And on your table, you will each have a photo of this pen that's on my lapel. The reason I put photos there is this is the only pen out of 300, would you pass those, please? Out of 300 that we have left. And these pens were created in 2000 by the Citizens Committee for a four-year university. And if you look at that pen, you will see in the white section of the state of South Carolina a number of dots. Those are the four-year colleges that were in existence at that time in the state of South Carolina. You have it?
Did you give them the same thing you gave us?
Yes, but I'm referring now to the thing I gave you earlier.
Oh, okay.
This
Yeah.
one, the blue pin.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
This image
Right,
here, which you
right.
should have. Mr. Passmore, you probably don't, so let me bring you one.
I have that, I just don't have. Do you have another one of these over there? There's an
Do you
extra
have
one
two?
over there.
May I take one and pass it?
Oh, okay.
You can have both. Thank you.
And so what happened is the people here were very frustrated and wanted a four-year university. We formed this committee, and 300 people signed up almost overnight. And as a result of that, we had a forum, and the community decided that in order to protect our military bases and the families that work there, in order to provide the cultural attraction that we needed to have physicians and surgeons and other people in our healthcare system, in order to provide the training for people who are going to manage things here, whether it be nursing departments, nurses themselves, to have teachers who knew what they were doing, we needed to have a four-year university. So out of that, we had a series of forums, and those forums consisted of a number of panels, all of which concluded it was very important. And one of the people that participated in those panels was your own York Glover. He was representative of Clemson at the time, but said we needed a four-year university. So as a result of that, there was a great groundswell of support. And your county council predecessors created a TIF district, and out of that TIF district, we had a $25 million financing for USCB. We traveled around the state, went to Columbia, Greenville, Florence, didn't have to go to Charleston because they were in Columbia the same day we were, to get approval from the various parties to be. And what they said, and this is important, is that they have always wanted to have a university down here, but they had limited resources. But because the Beaufort County Council and the Beaufort County citizens had stepped up with that $25 million contribution, this would be a four-year university. That happened before we had programs approved. That happened before we had many of the infrastructure things in place, including a campus in Bluffton. So 20 years ago this year, USCB began offering four-year degrees at this campus. And if you were there last Friday at the graduation, you would have seen young people in fields such as nursing, psychology, everything you might imagine, cybersecurity, things that are very important for the quality of life here and for the future of our families here. And I will tell you that during those forums, much of that, not much, but a lot, was focused on the fact that many of our young people in our families here are not sending their children away from school. We need those schools here. So now that's 20 years. Fast forward 20 years, USCB has exceeded everything we expected they would do during that period of time, including the amount of enrollment, including funding from other sources to do things much like housing and some of the athletic capacity that are down there, housing here in Beaufort, building on Hilton Head that's really a great building. Lots of positive things are happening. During that period of time, I can say this because I'm a retired guy, the University of South Carolina, Columbia have been busy with their money in Columbia and hasn't sent any here. And that's okay, because they've got that issue to deal with. The state legislative delegation, our group, has been very nice and been very helpful. So what you see here in front of you, this image, is an aerial image of the campus of USCB. This white building you see here, shown on this, is the location for the Convocation Center, which I call Sand Shark Arena, because I'm a business guy, and Dr. Panu is an academic and highly educated professional. And I like the arena because I have this feeling that when we have the Tabernacle karaoke and review down there, we're going to sell out all the tickets at least once. I don't know about twice.
He's making fun of me.
And so this facility, when approved, will be the largest facility between Savannah and Charleston, will give us an opportunity to do cultural items, opportunity to do athletic things. USCB has now stepped up to a higher level in the NCAA. And if you haven't been to one of their basketball games, I encourage you to do that. My wife is an athlete and quite competitive, and she finds them to be very energetic and high quality of athlete specifically because this is the first year. So behind this, you'll see a couple of pages of quick notes, and I promise not to take long. So you don't have to get the hook out on me yet. Thanks, Dan. So points for you to consider as you look at this, please, is USC currently serves over 2,000 students. There's a FTE and then there's a student. That's the difference. USCB is preparing to celebrate 20 years as a four-year degree-granting institution, as you heard, and USCB has exceeded expectations, and it's time now to plan for the next 20 years. USCB became a four-year degree-granting institution when Beaufort County used bonds to build the Bluffton campus. Bonds were scheduled to repay from increased real estate taxes over 30 years. They repaid over 9 years, 21 years ahead of plan. USC needs an arena and athletic fields to serve its mission and its community. USCB received no funding from USC Columbia. Our legislative delegation is doing magnificent work, but we need more. So the cost for constructions are going up every day. You've just heard that. So if we can find a way to fund that now and avoid that additional cost in the future, that will be a good thing. If we're going to have the university we need and that the citizens expect, we're going to need to fund it locally, just as we funded the first expansion 20 years ago. So the proposal that I'm presenting to you today as a representative of the USCB Education Foundation and the head of the Capitals Committee in that group is to establish a working group to formalize plans for an MCIP. Happy to go through what that means if you'd like. To be sponsored by both Beaufort and Jasper County. This MCIP is estimated to be in the range of $70 million to $85 million total, as you heard Dr. Penu talking about a minute ago. That depends on what we get it done and we move forward. Note the 2000 bond that paid off in 9 years was for $35 million. It's reasonable to assume that things have doubled in price in the last 20 some odd years. So the result, this would be the largest venue, 4,500 seats between Charleston and Savannah. We'll host basketball, volleyball, wrestling, concerts, cultural, corporate, and civic events, as well as graduations, assemblies, and other USCB events. The athletic fields will host baseball, softball, soccer, and track. And for those of you who may have been around when I was in high school, the Beaufort Relays used to be one of the premier track events in the state of Georgia. And a former councilman of mine, Herbert Glaze, has been coaching women's track at Beaufort High School for over 50 years without any hint of any appropriateness and many great victories. And we need to celebrate him. And what we'll do as well is bring people in that will generate business for hotels, restaurants, A-tax, H-tax, property taxes, business license fees, and building permit fees. So supporting materials, Mr. John O'Toole, who's back here in the back, and his group are providing an economic impact analysis. We're working through that with the people that he's brought on board to help us. The CVB is doing economic impact on what this would mean for the hotels in that area as well as the restaurants. So the next steps we're asking you for, we're not here asking you for money, we're asking you to help us plan, is to form a working group to pursue funding, obtain support from Beaufort County, Jasper County, the town of Bluffton, town of Hardyville, Beaufort County School District, and Jasper County School District, and finalize cost estimates. This is exactly what we did in 2000 that led to the first campus. Hire a consultant determining the optimum size of the MCIP area, how much in Beaufort, how much in Jasper, which areas, and so forth. And there are people that do that, and they'll come out with an easily understandable map. And hire a bond consultant to prepare the bond structure. Then we'll need formal approval from the county council here and formal approval from the Jasper County Council. And then the MCIP area and terms will be finalized, issue the bonds, begin construction, and celebrate completion. And a word to build on a theme that seems very popular here, and as a property owner and taxpayer, it's certainly popular with me. None of this requires a tax increase. This is increment financing, so this will be paid back out of the taxes, the incremental taxes are generated. And I can tell you that there are many people who will value living near a university because of the cultural richness and because people in our time know that continuing education is an important part of quality life. So we hope you will consider this and work with us, the citizens and the Education Foundation, to support our local university so that we can have here what many of you expect to have and what many of you use from, moved here from other places are accustomed to have. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Pesman.
The working group, how many will be part of that, and what number would you want to participate from county council?
I would not presume to suggest county council what you would like to do, but I can tell you that in 2000, what we had is we had the county administrator and we had the finance director from the county and an informal relationship with the chairman of the county council.
Very good, thank
We would
you.
expect the same thing from Jasper in this case. Thank you. Anyone else?
A little bit off topic, but would that group also focus on growing the campus up here in northern Beaufort County?
That's a decision that group would make and come back to USCB. But to answer your question, marine maritime work is an important part of the USCB focus. We do know that the Coastal Carolina University in Conway has about 900 students in their marine biology and marine science programs, and they're 35 miles from the ocean. This campus here at the historic campus is on the Port Royal Sound and the Beaufort River. There's absolutely no reason we shouldn't be a premier place for people to come and study the salt marsh and the importance it has in sequestering carbon, and they should come from around the world. I will be advocating for that, but I'm just one lonely voice, and apparently you and I have that in common. Thank you. Anything else?
I'd just like to make a comment that I would really also like to see that program revitalized and not, maybe that's the wrong word. I remember when there was a program that was more active than now, but it certainly, we don't want someone from another state to take over that program as was threatened last year.
Yeah.
Before I hand that back to Dr. Panu, which is the right thing.
Even
to
though I'm
do,
an alumni of that school.
let me just tell you that I couldn't agree more, but we're going to need some participation and support locally because growing 3% a year doesn't capture the opportunity that is provided to this community.
But that Pritchard's Island is so important to our area. Yes, sir.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Doctor.
And yes, just to that effect, since last year when we were able to get some recurring funding, we have revitalized the utilization of the Pritchard Island. And biology, marine biology is one of our fastest growing programs on campus.
And I wouldn't want another University of Georgia to come in and swoop that up, so.
That's correct.
We need to keep it
Yeah.
in South
Yeah,
Carolina.
so
Yes.
we went through the first phase of that, which was to get recurring funding for that. And the second phase, we're going to need a large vessel. And we were asking about a total for a one-time kind of things, around $700,000. We did not receive that, but we're continuing that work. It's going to be really critical, not only for the work that's going on in terms of students' engagement, but also public education for barrier islands and the role they play. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? comments? All right, thank you so much, Dr. Pinner, always good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Stewart.
Doctor now.
What?
Dr. Stewart.
Dr. Stewart, okay.
I believe next we're supposed to have the solicitor's office, but he is running
Yes.
late, so if we can go ahead and move to the economic development
Sure, we can go to
presentation.
Mr. O'Toole, Beaufort
Yes.
Economic Development. Thank you for that.
Welcome, John.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you all. Do you need to read anything, or I just jump right in?
Well, there is a project narrative, so Beaufort County Economic Development Corp., BCEDC, is charged with developing a more diverse economy for Beaufort County, developing tax base and quality jobs for residents. They will continue to pursue projects that are in sync with the scale and environmental expectations of the community. With the ongoing success at the Beaufort Commerce Park, it's imperative we look to sites that would be suitable in the future. BCEDC is currently is asking the council to increase the funding of the site and jobs account by 1 mil above the current 0.3 mils for 3 or 4 years to allow for the purchase and build-out of infrastructure of development sites. The funds would reside with the county and will require council approval for specific acquisitions and infrastructure build-out as the opportunities arise. Proceeds realized from the sales will replenish this fund. Fiscal impact, based on current value of a mill, and I know you've been working with Finance Department, this funding is estimated to be approximately $8.1 million for a 3-year period. Should the county have the ability to transfer this mill from another fund temporarily or for a period up to 3 years, the funding of this request would not increase taxes, there's the magic word, but will reappropriate existing funds. Okay, you're on. That was a lot.
So like a fire chief, I will thank Denise Christmas for working so well with us. Recently, been working with Hank Admonson and Rob Merchant on recent projects, so I'd like to thank them. I would like to recognize my long-serving board chairman, Ashley Feaster is with us today, and our board treasurer, Greg Shelton, is with us today. Joe Passaman and Paula Brown attend a lot of our meetings, and I think they're well-versed on what our focus is. I'll rattle through this. Denise, how quick? I see you're ready to give people the hook, but I'll go pretty quickly. I would like to say, though, the TCL and USCB, their ability to move quickly, and Dr. Stewart mentioned that he's just a quiet voice, but I think that quiet voice was somewhere at the origins of cybersecurity in Beaufort County. And we've had Warren Parker running that initiative. Rick Siebenthaler is moving on a National Science Foundation grant, so there's a lot of good work there. But word spreads, the production of talent, that pipeline of talent is spreading. And on May 16th, I have a firm in from Sweden that would like to consider setting up operations in Beaufort. It's not in the bag, but the fact that folks in Charleston and folks in Columbia think of Beaufort when it comes to cybersecurity is very good. So we have a lot of partners that make it work. We were stood up, and I'll try to go through this quickly, but I think the context of what we're looking to do matters, and kind of what our board's philosophy is matters. So that's pretty funky. We're really focused on grand list growth, beneficial jobs for our neighbors and residents, and diversifying Beaufort's economy. When we think of economic development, and you all know this, we think there are 6 important spokes that all have to be built out. And probably the first 2 I mentioned are more important than maybe the others, but environment and education, 1 and 2. Economic development, workforce development, housing, and transportation are the other important spokes. As we live here in Beaufort, we know how beautiful it is. As I just came back from Atlanta this morning, there's a lot of pressure because we are so desirable. Housing, commercial development, even the open space penny is going to reduce the land that people could make a living on in the future. So it's important to think in terms of balance, and then also maintaining for future generations a place for a dignified way to provide for your family. Now, in these first 6.5 years, we've done $383 million worth of investments, 1,700 jobs that are average or that will pay over $90 million a year in compensation, and on average 50,000. Now, that number just bumped up because we have a company that's looking to close on a piece of property up in Gardens Corner that'll add 42 jobs, averaging $125,000. So it's a good project. Now, I want to add this, and let me just say that when we work with Commerce and all of the good allies that we have available to us in the state of South Carolina, we've also been able to deliver $20 million in incentives, taxpayer money coming back to projects in Beaufort County. Now, when I talk about all this, I don't want you to think that it's John O'Toole and Kelly Brunson, Ashley Feaster, Greg Sheldon doing all of this. Greg Shelton, pardon. Sheldon, I get mixed up. But Greg does a great job for us, and I shouldn't get mixed up. But on each project, we do a different level of work. In some cases, it might be just making an introduction to the water and the sewer company, or to the power companies, or whatever the case might be. Last week, we convened a meeting with the planners of City of Beaufort and Beaufort County with a potential investor. So, but I want to make sure when I give you numbers, I'm not standing here professing that I made the sun come up on these projects. We just do what economic developers do. Now, as we think of the Beaufort Commerce Park, we have a developer that was approved by City of Beaufort and by our board last week to build the second spec building out there. That'll be 72,000 square feet. Just during the delay at the beginning of this meeting, took a call from a gentleman, and his firm's going to invest $35 million out in the Commerce Park. And we're also working with a ceramics company, an industrial ceramics company. And now keep this in mind as we're talking about buying property, that the City of Beaufort bought the Beaufort Commerce Park for $11,000 an acre. The last deal we closed, we sold each acre at $40,000. So you'll see some money goes into infrastructure, but on the sale of it, the money in this case replenishes what the City of Beaufort had paid for the land. Our recommendation, our thought is, when you think of the previous economic development organization that they had in Beaufort, when they ceased to exist, some 3 banks were left holding the bag to more than $300,000. So if we're going to act on behalf of the county, similar to what the conversation you had with TCL, we'd like a long-term commitment, because we would probably bond and then or borrow or do land leases, and we'd need land lease for purchase, and we'd need to know that we're able to perform. Staff and our board doesn't want to be involved in a deal where we don't come through on promises we make to lenders. So that's why we're looking for 3 or 4 years. And again, Denise has been very helpful on that front. We're also looking at, and I can tell you, and I'll rattle off some numbers. We probably already have a commitment from Commerce on some of this, just shy of $1 million. Working with SCA and using Beaufort Proviso money, we think we could probably get another $540,000 to augment the dollars you're talking about. We have been in conversations with the legislature on one of these projects, where by the end of June, we may have $3 million lined up to augment what we're talking about. Other sources, in Atlanta, I spoke to CSX Rail about the potential of rail expansion to one of these sites in Yemassee, not on Hilton Head and not in Port Royal, but out at Yemassee. And there would be utility tax credits and EDA grants. And keep in mind that when we sell these properties, the money would come back to the fund held by the county. The funds would be held by the county, and any purchases we make would be in the name of the county and be approved by this council. So we're not asking you for a blank check. Now, it was asked last time I spoke to you, why would economic development buy property? And coincidentally, there was a young, knowledgeable site selector at this conference I was at in Atlanta, and she pointed out specifically that if you had a site served with industrial power, and if you had a site that could have rail siding, it's really important economic development organizations get in place to maintain that opportunity. But you also want to maximize the use of property. As you can see throughout the county, and as I drive across 170, you can see what the investment community thinks is highest and best value. And obviously, we need, I don't know, you may need an Ulta, you may need a TJ Maxx or whatever's coming in, but people need good paying jobs too. And so that's why we focus on what we do. Also, if we own the property, if an economic development owns the property, and I just rattled off just shy of $5 million in leverage funds we can identify to augment what the county's doing, you can't get utility tax, receive utility tax credits on privately held land. It has to be owned by a municipality or a county or the state. So there would be infrastructure grants, and as Councilman Dawson would understand, out in his district, there is opportunity, but it's got to be gauged with what the people want out there, and then the infrastructure in place to serve the project. So that's why economic developments get involved. Also, they get involved to catalyze an underutilized area, create a balance with the environment, which will be the really neat thing. I think that some of the projects we do will be national best practices in terms of balancing smart growth, where you could have high-paying jobs next to workforce housing, and do it in a way that our environmental friends say, hey, they're on the mark and they want to stand next to us because we're in balance. And I think that matters to people in Beaufort County. And then lastly, what you want to do is economic development organizations get involved so that they can preserve land that can be used in a way that generates the most grand list growth, diversifies the economy, and again, provides really great opportunities for men and women to provide for their families. So that's why we're doing it, and Denise can explain where she's getting it from, and like a fire chief, I can say, and it would cause no tax increase. Fair? Okay, thank you.
She's worked some real magic with this no tax increases.
Well, I can't say it enough. Denise is a delight to work with.
Thank
She
you.
really
It's
is
great to
very
know.
professional and straightforward. I appreciate it.
Any questions or comments for Mr. O'Toole?
I do. I have some questions, John. You had just mentioned a firm in Sweden. Is that the results from a trip you took internationally last year?
No, I went to Sweden and we were focused on fish and tomatoes. So the Swedish one is really an outgrowth of the South Coast Cyber Summit that Warren Parker runs. One of the women on the panel is a economic developer out of Charleston, but she knows about this firm that wants to establish a U.S. presence, and she knows the energy that our colleges are creating and the ability to test the market from the landing pad that we have at 500
Okay, so
Carteret
that's
Street.
in addition.
What's that?
This is in addition to your trip?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. After looking at your website, I saw the agendas posted for 2021 and 2022, but I didn't see any minutes. Have you not posted them yet?
No, they should be posted with the county.
Oh, okay.
I think everyone's posted. Our very diligent Charlie
Charlie
Stone,
Okay.
before he left, made sure everything was
Okay.
in,
I'll go back and look at
and
that.
I'll call him as I leave here.
Okay.
We still,
Okay.
no, but yeah, I believe everything's
Yeah,
been
filed.
I, sorry, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, Beaufort Commerce Park, can you explain, so you built like a building, right? You built a building, and then different companies come in and they buy space in the building? Is that what
They
I
actually
understand?
leased it, yes,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, they lease it?
Yeah.
They don't buy space?
They leased it from the developer, and with the space leased within 368 days, fully leased, 2 tenants, within 368 days of the shovel going in the ground and before the certificate of occupancy was granted. And then the developer was able to sell that building within a year. So it's proved twice over it's a great market.
Oh, is it full of?
Yes,
It's full?
yes,
So now you're gonna build another one?
yes.
That's,
72,000 square feet.
72,000 square feet, okay, yeah, okay, so, okay. Okay, so it's full then, okay. But Myrtle Park, we had a conversation about this last time you were here. And I went over there and I checked out all the companies that are in Myrtle Park. And you had mentioned there's 85, the developer was supposed to create 85 jobs for that. Is it for the total park?
Mhm.
Oh, it is, it's not for each individual.
No,
company
no, that
went
would be
in there?
impossible. That would be a fire hazard if,
Oh, yeah, I was gonna
if all those
say.
people worked in
Okay,
each.
yeah, I was gonna say, because there's
yeah.
no way that could happen. Okay, all right. So, you said ceramic company, what do they do?
They make small ceramic pieces used in
Like
industrial
vases
purpose.
That kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're they've been in Beaufort a long time. They're renting space as they're getting moved out of the space they've been in for about 8 years. And in 2 years, they're gonna build a building. So, we're working through an engineering firm right now on, 2 parcels out there to figure out which one would be the best for their plan to build either 15,000 square feet or 30,000 square feet.
Okay, so Beaufort Commerce Park is full.
No,
They're gonna build another
no,
one.
no, it's not full.
Oh, it's not full.
But it's moving towards full. And if you don't, if we don't start some other parcels, you know, I always tell people that research Triangle Park, everyone's heard about it, right? It was an overnight success. It took 50 years to get as hot as it is today. So, I've said it in front of the council that wise men plant trees whose shade they'll never sit under. It's important that we get that next park started so that future generations will have a place to locate whatever that
Okay, so this
industry is.
confidential product report previously shared with council, you can't share what that is?
What's that?
It says item background, confidential product report previously shared with council?
I think everyone on council got a copy of that report. I gave it out in the
Right, yeah.
executive conference room. And it's a dynamic report, but if anyone would like to go over what our thinking is, and as council members know, when we go over that in our board meeting, we always let county council members in. I think it's great that everyone knows what we're doing. The important thing, though, is that if we are working on a tract of land, that we're not so communicative that we're driving the price up and we're working at odds with our interest and the residents' interest to use tax dollars wisely.
Okay, so I understand everything you said, but my constituents, they're concerned that, okay, so we're gonna give $8.1 million out, but we can't tell them what it's for. So they feel, as my constituents and taxpayers, they have the right to know what this is for. I know you've come to county council and told us, but since this is public money, they want to know what the uses are going to be for all this money. And my
I'd be
constituents-
happy to have a town hall meeting with your
Oh, you would?
constituent. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And answer as
Okay.
many difficult questions as
Oh,
they'd like to
okay,
throw at
great.
me.
All right.
Yeah.
And we're talking about my constituents, I'm talking about Belfair and Rose Hill.
Yeah, you can publish it everywhere and we can get a big
Okay.
venue.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
happy to
that's- okay.
answer questions on most
All
of, and Councilman Brown, or Councilperson Brown, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Uh,
You can call me Paula.
What's that? Paula?
You can call me Paula.
Oh, thank you, yeah. We have erred on the side of disclosing everything. We've been working on this confidential project on Hilton Head, a $23 million investment. It was called Project Cloud. But when the community was concerned about it, we told them right from the beginning, it's Lone Mountain. Sometimes we have to be careful,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
just
yeah.
on,
Oh, I
just
totally
on
get it.
the
Yeah.
price of land. And when it comes to companies that might be relocating, you don't want to upset employees' lives. If ultimately a company's just exploring an option and doesn't move forward with that option, you don't really want too much out there. But I say it all the time, I think I've said it here, in Beaufort County, in the absence of good information, people make up their own, and it's worse than the truth. So I try to tell everybody everything we're working on, and I'd be happy to do that at any community meeting.
wonderful.
Just so you know, some of the targets we've been looking at, we've been talking about the Lebico chemical plant. We've been talking to Chilton about a 500-acre tract up in Yamasee. And there's another parcel just south of the Whale Branch that could be a 70-acre opportunity. So I don't mean to, I just, in some instances,
Yeah,
we'll move and when we're getting close to moving forward. But this isn't dissimilar to what I've seen council do with rural and critical lands in the past. They've set $25 million aside and said that would be available to you. But before council moves with the actual purchase, it comes to council in executive session, and then it goes through your reading process where the public can comment on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I just have one more comment. You mentioned CXX, the railroad in Yamasee. Does that, because Mr. Passimus has a plan of all the Cs, and it's going to be in Yamasee? It's not going to be like maybe at the very end of 278? A station there or something?
No, that's Hardyville.
Okay.
Just an interesting thing, we have talked to Andy Foljam in Jasper about potential multi-county industrial
Who's
parks
that?
that.
Andy?
He's the,
No, it's okay.
John's counterpart in Jasper County.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. All right, well, thank you so much.
You're
If I
welcome.
might- If I might,
ahead.
for the new members on council, just so that you have an idea how we got started with economic development in Beaufort County. About 16 years ago, the former council realized that we needed funding source for more than just tourism and property taxes as far as generated taxes to operate the county on. And so therein birthed the Economic Development Corporation. That corporation was put together, they had a board, and John is the director of that Economic Development Corporation. And over the 16 years, they have done a lot. Now, we're not where we actually want to be, but they're progressing. At the inception of setting up the corporation and the board, Dick Stewart was one of our council members at the time. And the whole emphasis was diversifying our economy. And so to have the county in a position where we want to rely solely on tourism and property taxes for operation, we have another leg of economic development. And so over the years, John has brought jobs into the county, and like I said, I'm supportive of the corporation and the job that they're doing, and I hope the rest of council will continue to support them as well. As John mentioned, we're currently looking at doing some stuff in the Lebico industrial site in the Lebico area. Then we have the Yamasee site that he just mentioned. Those are two sites that are up for grabs. And we need to take advantage of actually securing those sites and moving forward with economic development for Beaufort County. John has come before us and he's asking for a $1 million increase for a 3-year period to give them $8.1 million. Denise is saying that is doable, so I would encourage us to approve this and move it forward, and let's get it going.
So would you like to make a motion to that effect?
So move, Madam Chair.
Oh, you want to be specific for Ms. Brock?
Okay.
Because in here it says 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and that's where I was gonna remind you of a book I used to read my kids. If you give a moose a muffin, and he always wants more. If we could have it longer, we could borrow more and cover more of the opportunity. So if there was a potential to do it for 3 to 5, that would be
Yeah.
desirable.
I would like to hear from Denise because she can explain it
Well,
in
we need a
layman's terms.
Well,
Well,
he
he
hasn't
needs
made
to
the
finish his-
specific
Oh, I'm sorry,
motion
I'm
yet.
sorry, I'm sorry.
So,
Okay.
hang on a second, he has
Yeah.
to make a specific motion?
Well, we need to know whether Denise is
Okay.
gonna tell us to go to 3 or 4 or 5.
Right.
Okay, so you guys set the millage in the fall, and so this would come when you set the millage. That's when the vote really needs to happen, is when you set millage and when we adopt our budget ordinance. So we'll spell out in the budget ordinance specifics as to the Economic Development Fund. We can do a separate one for that fund, actually, a separate budget ordinance. And at that time, when you have first, second, third readings, that's when you could approve his request. Tom?
Yes, that's exactly right. So if you look at the FY '25 budget, and it's in your backup material too,
Yeah.
you'll see that council had started years ago allocating a 1.1 mil for USCB and 1.1 mil for TCL. And as part of your budget, it's 2.2, so it's recited in there. And so if council chooses to do that, you would make it part of your budget, or you may want to make it as a separate budget. But either way, that's how you would handle it.
But how much is it gonna raise?
Okay, so what Mr. O'Toole was talking about with the mill, with no impact, we can transfer a mill from another fund, and I'll be presenting that shortly in my presentation
Oh, okay.
to talk about millage and how we can move some things around that makes more sense for us going forward.
I just got my tax bill for my vehicle. I just bought a new vehicle. And on there it says economic development, 56 cents.
Oh,
Well, thanks for contributing, there you
Yeah.
go.
look at there.
Okay, so we're still
Councilman
looking for a motion.
Councilman Cunningham, if you want to make a motion like you're talking about doing, you may want to reference the resolution that
Correct.
council just, that this committee just recommended to council, the resolution with regard to the TCL, and kind of use that as a go-by.
So, Mr. Dawson, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, yeah.
That it goes to full council,
I'm trying to find the resolution.
to move to full council?
I don't think we had a resolution in
It'd
the
be similar
backup,
to the
but
one
we were
we
just,
did.
was there a resolution for him?
The one that was.
There was one for TCL, but not for him specifically.
Yeah,
Substitute USCB and substitute your.
correct.
I think
So
today we
the-
were just looking for approval to build a budget based on this information.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Glover.
thank you. For planning purpose for the Economic Development Board, I would really appreciate if we would consider 5 years. At least they can plan out for 5 years from now.
I was gonna suggest the same.
That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that? Mr. Bartholomew, you wanted to say that?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest a 5-year, give you some breathing room to get it done.
So it would be a resolution similar to what's in front of us, just substituting Economic Development Corporation. And it would say to increase the current 0.3 mils for 5 years, is that where we're going?
For a 5-year period
5-year period?
to 1.3.
So it's
Yeah.
1 mil per year for a 5-year period, is that
Right.
right? That's what the resolution would say, basically.
I think it's gonna be 1.3.
It'd be 1.3,
Right.
yeah. Okay, Mr.
All right,
Dawson?
so move. How's
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Oh.
Oh.
It's okay.
All right, Ms. Howard will second it. Any other comment or discussion?
So it's moving
To
the-
county council.
Right, they'll move to county council.
Right.
For an additional 1 mil.
Right.
To 1.3 mils.
For
the-
5 years.
For a 5-year period of time.
Right.
As long as everybody understands.
Yeah.
An additional 1 mil, which makes 1.3 mils, because they
1.3
already
mils.
get 0.3
Right.
for the next 5 years.
Right.
That's going to be a proposed resolution to council.
Ms. Brock, would you call the roll, please, since this is money here? Lots of money.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Glover,
Yes.
Councilmember Dawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Chairman Passament,
Yes.
Committee Vice Chair Tabernick,
Yes.
Committee Chair Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you, everybody. Great.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more presentation. 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office, Jeff Kidd, Chief of Staff. Is Jeff here? Yes, there he is. This one's all you. Welcome.
Thank you. Afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My appreciation too for accommodating my schedule. I realize I had double booked myself
Well, we
today.
appreciate you coming.
Okay. As I said, I'm Jeff Kidd. I'm the Administrative Chief of Staff for the Solicitor's Office. Most of you folks are familiar, but I'm going to give you a brief introduction just to the things that I do, because I think it's a good opportunity to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the programs and that we administer at the Solicitor's Office. Also, we'll give you a little bit of insight into why I am here giving this presentation today and not the solicitor himself. I was hired at the Solicitor's Office, began in February rather of 2017. I was brought on as the Communications Director. I did the things that the Communications Directors typically do. I deal with news media, internal publications, our website, that sort of thing. The other thing that was part and parcel of my job, though, was also government relations. In fact, one of the first tasks that the solicitor assigned me to when I began working for the Solicitor's Office was writing budget justifications and requests to the various governments that funded us. In 2020, he changed my job title to Administrative Chief of Staff and expanded my job responsibilities as well. So now under my purview includes diversionary programs. Pretrial intervention is probably one that most people would be most familiar with. We also operate a multidisciplinary treatment court, more colloquially known as a drug court. And that program is something that we're really quite proud of, have good recidivism rates, graduation rates. The concept there is to bring nonviolent offenders whose criminal activity is kind of underpinned by substance abuse disorders and give them an alternative to prison. And that alternative is very close supervision by our staff and our community partners, as well as treatment. That supervision, by the way, includes regular drug testing. And when I say regular, usually about 3 times a week. So they're closely looked after and with the hope of restoring them to health and to also being productive citizens again. As I said, we've had quite a bit of success with that program. In fact, our director, Teresa Pye, and our Beaufort County Multidisciplinary Court Judge, Aaron Dean, who is a private attorney who presides over our drug court, are actually in Columbia today speaking at the governor's opioid summit meeting. They're giving a presentation there. Another thing that's probably particularly pertinent to the folks in Beaufort County to know is that the MDC program includes a veterans tract. The service members who serve us and protect our freedoms overseas, if they bring home, an addiction problem or PTSD, something that leads them kind of off the path, Solicitor Stone believes very firmly in giving them an opportunity to make good and to get them the treatment and help that they need, again, as an alternative to prison. Another program that's under my purview is the 14th Circuit Victim Services Center. This is located in our headquarters in Okatee, and it is right down the hall from our Special Victims Prosecution Unit. This entails a number of community partners, among them Hopeful Horizons, Low Country Legal Volunteers, who I know Mr. Bartholomew, you're familiar with, because I think I saw you just signed on as a volunteer with them. Yeah, great. Ann K. Wood and her folks they're great partners, and we love having them in our center. Kappa is another partner with us. Bikers Against Child Abuse is another one of the partners in that center. The concept there is to bring together under a single roof the service providers for the security and the convenience of victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, other crimes of that nature against vulnerable populations. We also have a component that includes, we provide services to local hospitals, and when I say local, Beaufort County and Jasper County, where we will send sexual assault nurse examiners into their ERs if they have somebody there, a patient that presents with a report of a sexual assault. One of the benefits of that is, one, to the hospital, they don't have to pull an ER nurse off of the floor. These exams can be quite lengthy. Usually it's about a 4-hour process, and we're collecting forensic evidence as well as tending to the victim. It also puts those patients in the care of somebody who has special training to do those examinations, and somebody who would testify in court if it came to that. So again, that's something that the hospitals seem to appreciate, and we're continually working to try to improve the number of, there's a teaching component of that program, and to bring more sexual assault nurse examiners online, particularly in the pediatric area. There's a tremendous shortage of those nurses with those capabilities in the state of South Carolina, and we're working to combat that. One other thing that's particularly relevant with our Victim Services Center, about a year ago, we earned a designation as a Family Justice Center. This is by the accreditation that is bestowed by the Alliance for Hope. There are a couple of hundred of those Family Justice Centers around the globe. There's only one in South Carolina, and it's here in Beaufort County in our office. That's kind of a list, a rather long list of the things that are under my purview as Administrative Chief of Staff. There should be something that is conspicuously absent from that list. That is, haven't said anything about our attorneys or our investigators, the prosecution side. I'm not an attorney. I don't supervise attorneys. I do not participate in prosecutorial decisions. As I said, this introduction also kind of explains why Solicitor Stone is not here giving this presentation. Because I don't participate in those decisions, he sent me here. He had some misgivings about appearing before a body that is under a SLED investigation that he called for. So that's why he sent me in his stead. Going back, as I said, 2017, when I first started here, one of the things that I did was begin writing budget justifications and presentations. Unfortunately, some of the things that I wrote about there and some of the concerns that we have still have not really been adequately addressed by Beaufort County. If you look at the state average per capita funding, you take Beaufort County out of the equation and look at the other 45 counties around the state, they're funding their solicitors' offices at a rate of about $13.82. Beaufort County provides us with funding of about $8.66 per capita. That would be fine if you're Allendale County, or if you're Hampton County, county that has where there's persistent poverty, but you're not Allendale County. In fact, depending on really pretty much regardless of the metric that you look at in terms of county affluence, you're in the top quartile. In fact, you're usually in the top half of the top quartile. So looking at similarly situated counties around the state, if you look, for example, of a list of the top counties in median household income, again, we're at $8.66 per capita. The other 5 counties that are at the top of that list are funded at a rate of about $17.23 per capita. So essentially, you're giving us about half the funding that other similarly situated counties are giving. The disparity grows even more stark if you look at counties that are similarly located and have similar economies. Specifically, I'm talking about those coastal counties, Charleston, Horry, Georgetown, Berkeley, that have a significant tourism element to their economy. and a lot of coastline. Again, those, if you take us out of those, out of that list of counties, 1846 per capita is the funding rate that those counties provide to their solicitors' offices. And again, we get $8.66 per capita. That's about 46% by my math, 46% of the funding that they receive. So looking back over time, 2020 fiscal year, I think we received a $1.6 million appropriation from Beaufort County. For this fiscal year, we're at 1.7. So that's about a $100,000 increase over a 4-year period. Again, I think my math is correct on this, as about 6.25% increase. But of course, that's been lapped by inflation about 3 times over that time period. So, you know, we did not make a specific request, although I think that, you know, getting us back closer to that $13.32 per capita funding would be a good start. But you know, that's really the proposal. I know a lot of times you'd like to have a specific project, but we have been providing those specific projects. I gave you a long list: the MDC Court, the Victim Services Center, and unfortunately, we've been able to bring a lot of that stuff to fruition all during my tenure at the solicitor's office. And unfortunately, I'd like to be able to say that we've done that with Beaufort County's help, but frankly, sometimes we've done it in spite of Beaufort County. With that, I will try to answer any questions that you might have.
Any question? Go ahead, Ms. Howard.
Thank you for the report. In all my years on county council, we've asked it to be broken down specific for Beaufort County. And again, this year, under your accomplishments, although they're great, I would like to know, of your Victim Service Center serving over 2,000 victims, how many are from Beaufort County?
Approximately 75%. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt
Well, I'd
you.
like
Practically
specific
75%.
numbers, and I hope that you do track the specific numbers by county. And also the sexual assault exams, how many of the victims were?
Those are almost exclusively Beaufort County because that's a service we provide in Beaufort County, in Beaufort County hospitals.
What do the other 4 counties do? They use their
They
emergency
will,
room?
it depends on whether it's an adult case or if it's a juvenile case that is reported. Juveniles, unfortunately, have to be taken to the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston
So
for those
a
exams.
victim from Hampton County would go to MUSC?
Yes, ma'am.
Not Beaufort Memorial Hospital?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But
Well,
would
I mean,
just-
they could conceivably show up as an emergency room patient, but typically if they reported to Hampton
But this-
Hospital,
this
they would
has
send them
always
elsewhere.
been a question that county council has had, because we know there's 4 other counties, but the solicitor's office gives us totals rather than broken down by county. Now, I hear your 75%.
Well-
But, also, do you use our drug and alcohol services for, our own county services that we have? Or do you
We
provide
do
that
to the
only
extent
to-
that we can. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. I don't mean
Yeah,
to talk
that's-
over you.
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
I mean, we know each other.
All right.
You can interrupt me. I don't mind, but I would like to finish my question
Sure.
regarding that. How do you, this center was stood up, and I've taken a tour of it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
great. And it was done with solicitors' initiative, and I applaud it. But is there some overlap, like with our drug and alcohol program, in your alcohol counseling for your people who come through there? I'm just asking.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused by the question, the overlap between,
Beaufort County's program and your center's program for alcohol.
that center is there to service the victims of domestic violence, sexual assault. The kind of counseling they're receiving is typically through,
But you do list what you do at the center, if I'm reading it correctly.
you might be conflating with our multidisciplinary court.
Right.
Some of the, okay,
Yes.
this folks, and our MDC folks are housed in the courthouse across the way here. Yes, we use Beaufort County Drug and Alcohol for some of the counseling, although not all of the counseling. In fact, one of the things that we had to do a couple of years ago is we wrote a federal grant ostensibly to kind of get us a foot in the door in Jasper and in Colleton County. We're fortunate that in Beaufort County has had an MDC program operating since, I think, well, actually, before 2009. We took it over in 2009 or 2010. And, but we've been the only county in the circuit that's really kind of had the other agency support that is necessary to provide them the services they need to do it effectively. What we did in 2020 is wrote a federal grant that got us in, that allowed us to expand into Jasper and Colleton County, and we did that by hiring on-staff counselors. But what that has done, and one of them is a substance abuse counselor, and the other is a mental health counselor. The mental health counselor was particularly key because what was happening in our MDC program before this counselor was brought on board, we don't have a mental health court component, but the co-occurring incidents of substance use disorder and mental health problems, there's a high co-occurrence of those problems.
I think we all understand that.
Yes, so we have been able to refer to Coastal Empire. However, at the time we wrote the grant, they were only able to accommodate 2 or 3 of our people at a time. At any given time at that point, we had about 23 to 30 Beaufort County participants in that court.
And what about the sheriff has a mental health person too, through a grant? Sheriff's Department does.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the purpose of that.
They do.
We have a counselor who is providing services that Coastal Empire has been unable to provide. And the point I want to make about that is that we got that grant again. I said the reason I mentioned the fact that we were ostensibly trying to get in, and we were trying to get into Jasper and Colleton counties, but I wrote the grant in such a way that allowed that the personnel that was used to be used in Beaufort County as well. That's a grant that probably Beaufort County would not have gotten on its own because we got priority consideration because of persistent poverty in the areas where we're looking to expand into. So that's one thing that the solicitor's office in general has been very good at doing, is trying to stretch those resources as far as we can. We got something for Beaufort County while we were trying to get into Jasper and Colleton, is kind of the point of that.
I have one other question.
Sure.
Your graphs are good comparing the household income, I understand that, and coastal county funding. But the poverty rate one, you don't give us the poverty rate for each of those counties on that particular graph. So I'm not sure what you're comparing.
That would be the upper end, or actually, it's the inversion of the median household income. I guess in a sense, it would be the bottom of the list. But the counties with the low, basically the coast with the lowest percentage of people living in poverty.
Okay.
And I believe Beaufort County's at like 10.7, 10.3, somewhere around there.
The AMI, the average median income is, or what?
No.
I don't know your source of numbers.
This is the U.S. Census Bureau. These are Census Bureau statistics.
Well, HUD uses that. To me, the poverty rate without more numbers doesn't tell me anything. And, I love statistics, I love census data, but I need more information than what you have there for me to understand that particular one. If it's the average median income as set every year, fine, but I don't know your reference point. But just pointing that out. The other information is good. I would have liked to seen the other counties in our district, the same data for them. To be a fair comparison, because I know we have some of the poorer counties.
Yeah, we
in the
absolutely
state.
do.
I mean, we have Allendale, and we have to.
Allendale is the poorest.
It is the poorest,
Yeah.
correct. Okay, those were my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Joe,
Mr. Bartholomew.
I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Do you know approximately what the total number of cases is in the 14th Circuit, as well as Beaufort County's portion of that?
In terms of new cases each by year, or
just
that
by-
are pending?
Yeah, pending right now, current case.
Pending right now, well, I can tell you that we had 2017 charges in Beaufort County in the last full calendar year, and 2036 the year before, so that's almost flat there. The caseload, Beaufort County is about 60% of the circuit population, but about 50% of the caseload. There's a lower crime rate in Beaufort County. In terms of our number of pending cases, and this is where the numbers kind of switch a little bit here, because when we talk about what most people will call a backlog, it's not really technically a backlog until it gets beyond a certain date or whatever, but that's a number actually that I calculated this morning, because I do a monthly update on that on our website, that's posted on the data center of our website. We are at just a hair over 5,000. We've knocked down that caseload by about 700 cases since the start of this calendar year. We've done really well. I do not have the county by county breakdown for those numbers. And what we call a case is a little different from what court administration counts charges. We count defendants because it's a little bit more accurate representation of our caseload.
Are those pre or post indictment numbers?
It's a mix of both. I mean, there are some awaiting trial that have been indicted and some that we're still, we're still examining the cases that have been forwarded to us from law enforcement.
Okay, and what's the total number of solicitors in Beaufort County that are full-time employees?
Well, and this, in a way, kind of goes back to Ms. Howard's question earlier, is that we have community attorneys that are assigned to a geographic area. We have other attorneys who might prosecute anywhere in the circuit. There are 8 of those attorneys assigned to Beaufort County right now. And again, that doesn't include, for instance, Hunter Swanson. He's the leader of our Special Victims Unit. She does cases all over the circuit. That also doesn't include like Mary Jones, who is a career criminal prosecutor. She actually does almost exclusively Beaufort County cases, so that would be a 9th attorney.
Okay, gotcha. Do y'all have a high rate of turnover there?
Well, it seems like our turnover tends to happen among our younger attorneys. We have a very pretty stable senior staff. In fact, I'm trying to think. I was counting on my hand the other day. I think I can only think of maybe 3 attorneys in the time that I've left that had been there more than 10 years that had left while I was there, and I've been there 7 years. So our senior attorneys tend to stay. Solicitor Stone's done a good job of kind of carving out a career path for those folks and giving them a wage that, they can support a family and afford the cost of living in Beaufort County. But some of our younger folks, we tend to hire folks that are out of law school. We try to get the cream of the crop of the folks that are getting out of law school, but a lot of them, they do it for a couple of years and then decide another area of the law is what I want to do. So there is some turnover there, and frankly, having increased funding would help us in recruitment and retention.
And that's where I was going with it,
Yes.
because I know that's an issue with the public defender's office.
Yes,
as
yeah,
far as
yes.
base salary and
It absolutely
trying
is.
to
And
get-
I'll tell you, like I said, Solicitor Stone, I mean, we know what first and foremost, our mission is the prosecution of those cases. We're supposed to be ministers of justice. A lot of the things that are under my purview are all good. Some of them are even mandated that we do by the state. But I can assure you that the focus in that office is about the proper prosecution of those criminal cases. So he's done a very good job of creating a salary structure for those folks. But something has to give, and we haven't been able to do it, for example, for support staff. People like me, for example.
And so I know we're the administrating county for the public defender's office. Is Colleton County y'all's administrating?
They are.
Okay. Do you know how they handle the separate funding from each county and as well as the state funding? Is that separate accounts? Is it commingled? How does that work? 'Cause I know that's an issue.
Well, in terms of revenues, yes, it's all tracked and kept separately. We have accounting departments, or categories rather, that where we can identify a specific county function, they're tracked in that manner. But we also have things like in my salary, for example, because most of my work does concern Beaufort County. Beaufort County cases are interacting with folks in Beaufort County. But I do work all over the circuit. So from an accounting standpoint, my salary is, there's basically a category for circuit-wide operations, and that's where that would fall. And that's where, again, we're kind of neither fish nor fowl when it comes to government, because we're not a county agency, we're not a state agency either. And so we've tried our best, and one of the ways we've been able to do things like have the Victim Services Center and try to expand our multidisciplinary court program is to try to take advantage of some synergies wherever we can find it, and try hard not to build 5 separate silos, and try to pull resources, not only within our office, but also we do that a fair bit with law enforcement, with our intelligence unit.
Now, and I promise y'all I'm almost done. I just have a few more questions for you. So, y'all have your own intelligence and investigating division, correct? Separate
Correct.
from the sheriff's department?
Yes, sir.
So we're funding the sheriff's department's investigating side of things, and then we're also funding the solicitor side of intelligence and investigation side.
Correct.
Is there any pooling of money there, or are those completely separate?
Those are separate, and really the roles of the investigators are quite a bit different. Our investigators wear several different hats. They're all duly trained law enforcement officers. They're certified through the academy. But Dylan Hightower, for example, who is the head of it, also is our fleet manager. They all do job B as well. But in terms of their investigations, their role is to, law enforcement hands off cases to us, and as you know, they have a probable cause burden of proof that they have to meet. Our attorneys do not. They have to prove their cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And so while we continue to engage with the investigators on the law enforcement side, our investigators are there to try to continue the investigation and to make sure that we're reaching meeting that burden. We're also a resource for a lot of our law enforcement agencies. We're blessed in this county to have Beaufort County, which has quite a bit of acumen and wherewithal. But some of the smaller agencies, even within Beaufort County, Bluffton or Port Royal, Beaufort, we're available to do things like cell phone extractions. We participate pretty regularly in surveillance and things of that nature. The other thing that's really important, I think, where there's a real synergy with the intelligence unit is that in our position, we're in a position to share what we know and to facilitate the communication between all the law enforcement agencies in our circuit. And again, this is, criminals don't care where they commit an act. They'll go, we've had, Bluffton Parkway shooting that Solicitor Stone has prosecuted. The victims in that were Bluffton High School students. The offenders in that were Jasper County residents. So one of the things that we're trying to do with the intelligence unit, for example, every morning we're poring over the detention center detainee list and looking at new arrests. We're running criminal background checks, and then we're also sending that out not only to our own attorneys and our own investigators, but we're sending it out to law enforcement across the circuit. And that really helps them, because you might have somebody that they're looking for that's maybe a potential witness or a suspect in another case. This is helpful, for example, for letting them know, hey, we've got your guy here, and in a number of other ways as well.
So, all right, I think you said that we're funding per capita $8.66 per capita.
Correct.
Okay. And I know you mentioned that there was not a specific dollar amount, but I swear I saw somewhere that it was $2.6 million that y'all are asking.
Well, I think the number I provided was that if you were to bring our funding up to the state per capita of $13.32, by my calculations, double check my math, I was a trained journalist, not an accountant. It would, I believe it would be 2.6 and some change.
Okay, and that's a 53% increase from last year. So, that's a pretty big ask, which is why I'm asking some of these questions.
Right, no, I understand.
I just want to understand better how it's utilized and where it's, where it's going. You also mentioned a budget proviso 60.5. Can you explain, and it says that we're not allowed to reduce your budget. Can
Yeah,
you-
my understanding is that any appropriation that you make to us, and I'm not sure exactly why this is the case, I think it's because it's an elective office, that if you were to reduce our funding, and it was not like an across-the-board county cut of the budget, you could do it, but then the state would reduce your aid to counties by a commensurate amount.
Okay.
So that it would be a wash for you to cut our budget.
And that would have to go to the chairman of the finance, Senate Finance Committee, correct? Or the chairman of
I-
the House Ways and Means?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure about the mechanism, but I think you're correct.
Now, would that be, this is a budget proposal that issues at $2.6 million. So you're saying, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Are you saying we can't reduce your request or can't reduce
No, no,
the
no.
budget of last year?
You can reduce our request, I mean,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm
I'm
understanding.
not trying to be
because-
snarky, but that happens, that's happened pretty consistently over the 7 years I've been here. No, you couldn't reduce from last year's
Previous- okay,
appropriation.
I just want to make sure I
Right.
understood.
And there are some, there are some, not to overthink it or over-explain it, but there are some caveats to that. One of the things, for example, that Jasper County does, we have a separate MOU with them because their municipalities were providing us some funding for our career criminal unit. At some point, they decided it was more efficient, and this all kind of transpired before I was there. I don't know the mechanics of it, but my understanding is that they were giving us this funding, and in return, the county was not charging them for, or at least not for full use of the detention center for their municipal police forces. And then somewhere, I think a couple of years ago, they decided just to make it part of the MOU. Presumably, they're charging those municipalities again, and just giving us the money directly instead of cutting it through the municipalities' coffers.
And last question, how much state funding do y'all receive?
It is about 45% of our total budget.
Because I don't think I saw that in the,
And I'm sorry, I don't think I put that down on the, didn't write that down on my notes either. I know it's 40% of our total budget and 48% of all government funding to our office. It's,
I think Sarah's got a state report that she can share with everybody.
Okay.
And it'll separate all the funding, and it looks like Worcester County actually, provides 72% of your county funding, which is stated on your annual report with the state. So it looks like Beaufort County's pitching in 72% of the total county appropriation of all the counties.
that could be accurate. One thing I want to point out, though, and this goes back, this is a case we've been making for several years, and like I said, it still has not been addressed. If you look at the employees, just the employees who work exclusively in Beaufort County, do little to no work outside of the county, and look at the cost of their salary and benefits, the contribution that Beaufort County makes to us doesn't cover that expense. No county does. Beaufort County comes closer to covering that expense than any other county in the circuit, but nobody's paying that freight. And what we hadn't even talked about at that point then is, again, salary people like me who do things over the entire circuit. Doesn't talk about the light bill, doesn't talk about managing the fleet or paying mortgage on our building. So, the issue here, if you want to make a comparison to, counties that don't have the financial wherewithal, make the comparison to other counties in the circuit that don't have the financial wherewithal. What we're saying is that, excuse the bad pun, can't get blood from a stone. We've done a very good job, I think, of stretching and giving value on the dollar for the funding that we've received. We've had very creative ways of going and getting the funding we need to fulfill some of these projects that have been of benefit. One of them I'll note, for example, is going to those municipalities. Hilton Head, the town of Hilton Head has funded our career criminal program and our MDC program. I'm not sure how long, but it predates my arrival at the solicitor's office, so at least 8 years. when we go, just a couple of months ago, we talked before their finance committee. They like the things that we do. They see the value in the programs. But the question is, this sounds a lot like something that Beaufort County ought to be funding. Why aren't they?
Madam
We
Chairman, I have,
don't.
Well, are you done?
Yeah, thank you, by the way.
Okay.
today, I don't feel like we've gotten all the information we need, from both Councilman Bartholomew's questions and my questions. I'm not sure what action we can actually take today.
This is just a presentation, we're not going.
It's just a presentation, but I
yeah.
would like for some of our questions to be addressed. That's great that Hilton Head's doing that, that's wonderful. I realize we're the richest county in the circuit, and we do have a responsibility for these other counties who have no resources. But I don't think we have all the information we need more information, and I hope you took note of some of our questions today and can help us with that.
Yeah, I do, I want to ask one thing, Mr. Kidd. I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Bartholomew. When it said provision 60.5 does not allow for a reduction, so in the past, have you asked for an increase? I don't know, I was new last year. So.
Yes, ma'am. There have been times when we've come to the council to ask for increases in funding. Sometimes attached to, we've made the argument very similar to the one I made today, just pointing out that in terms of, in per capita terms, really far, far behind what other counties are doing for their solicitors' offices. In other instances, we've had specific projects that we've asked for. The building, for example, that we're in right now, it's an office park in Okatee. We previously were renting space and shared an office park. We could not accommodate a victim services center that we wanted to, that we had been working on and had a vision to build. We came to county government asking for assistance in it. We didn't get it. We found a way to finance it privately. So now we have a new building that accommodates a growing staff, and that staff includes community partners in the Victim Services Center that we got. Again, like I said, I'd like to say that Beaufort County helped bring it along, but they really didn't. That's something that we had to be creative and go find for. There have been other instances, I think there have been years where we have not asked for an increase simply because the solicitor has found it actually had more success. You know, he's the chairman of the South Carolina Commission on Prosecution Coordination. That organization is sort of it does several things, but among them is they serve as the liaison between the General Assembly and the solicitors collectively. He's been more successful lobbying the General Assembly for money on behalf of all the solicitors than he has with Beaufort County and got more of it. So he's really focused a lot of his energies in some years on making arguments to the General Assembly, and we haven't come asking for an increase. And like I said, I've been here 7 years. I guess this is like my 8th budget cycle. I would say probably in half of them we haven't requested an increase.
And I asked that because you're asking for literally 54% increase, which is giant, as Mr. Bartholomew said.
What we're asking for is for the county to do better.
I know, I see that, but it's 54%. And can I just ask, what does do better mean? Does that telling us to do better?
I believe it is, and I'll explain that. That's my signature on this. I prepared the form, that's my signature. Solicitor Stone, but I don't submit anything to you until Solicitor Stone's looked at it. He has to have that, he has to have that cover sheet back. He said, take the request number out of there. He's got a stamp, do better, and, I mean, a little snarky, but, I guess, but, I think it's kind of indicative of some long-running frustration we've had in trying to get funding where we think it needs to be.
I wasn't sure if he was telling us to do better, or that's your motto, that you're always gonna do better.
Well, that's our motto too, but
Okay.
I think
Tell him
that was
duly
directed at you.
noted.
Y'all didn't present last year, did you?
No.
I don't know. I know I did not. I'm not sure if Solicitor Stone did or not.
Okay, yeah, I don't think anybody even showed up
No,
for
they
budget
didn't.
presentation.
No.
So I mean,
It could be.
sometimes if you don't ask, you know,
Right. Well, we didn't seek an increase last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you coming
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman, could I ask a quick question?
Yes, Mr. Glover, go ahead.
Thank you. The level of service, with state lab versus the county lab, do y'all utilize any of the county resources when it comes to lab work, autopsy, criminal lab work for the sheriff? Or do you rely primarily on the state labs?
Are you referring in Beaufort County cases or overall? I'm not sure I have a specific answer to the question regardless.
Yeah, the sheriff actually, we funded a lab for the sheriff about
correct.
4 years ago. And then we also, in the coroner's office, we funded lab work there so they could do autopsies.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering whether you're utilizing any of those services from the solicitor's side.
From the lab side, yes, absolutely. The DNA lab that the sheriff's office runs, they run a very good lab, as a matter of fact. They're very professional, very helpful, as are their investigators. So yeah, we are utilizing that primarily for DNA. There's still things that we need to send to SLED, a lot of forensics, ballistic tests rather. We'll still go through SLED. We have our own capabilities for cell phone records and cell phone data extractions. We can actually do those in-house ourselves. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Lawson, anything from you? Oh, he went out. Okay, Miss Christmas?
I don't know them off the top of my head. They should have been, were they not in the?
And then this sheet that you prepared about the per capita funding, I think it would be important information to know what the other participating counties per capita, what their contribution also is. not just
Yeah,
the county.
that's fine. Actually, I can give you those right now. Do you want?
Yep,
Okay.
go ahead, Chris.
Allendale, $2.64. Hampton, $4.83. Colleton is $8.19. One caveat with Colleton is that they also serve as our home county, and we do not have finance people within our office. They work, they answer to John Carpenter in Colleton. So, and also they give us HR support. So human resources is something that they provide for us.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kidd, what did you say Hampton County was?
$4.83.
And Colleton?
$8.19.
19.
Do the municipalities contribute as well?
Bluffton has in the past. They did not fund us in the current fiscal year. Hilton Head is funding us. I don't want to give you the wrong number. I want to say it's $180,000 a year, and that is specifically in support of our career criminal program and our multidisciplinary court program. And that supports only only those programs in Beaufort County. They don't get spent outside of the county.
And what
Any
does
other
Jasper do?
questions?
Jasper County? What
Yeah,
do they do?
Jasper.
Their funding,
Yeah.
Can't be much.
$8.44,
Oh. More than Colleton.
which is
More than Colleton,
more than
yeah.
Beaufort County.
Yeah. Okay, we got that part, Jeff. We got it. Any other questions for Mr. Kidd? All right, thank you for coming, and tell
Thank
Mr.
you.
Stone duly noted, do better. Got
We
it.
will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's our list of presenters. So now we have a bond presentation by David Cheatwood. I don't know about that name, David Cheatwood. And
Council members.
everybody has the handout.
Yeah, good afternoon. Is that on the screen too, or am I able to pull that up on the screen? Great. Perfect. Thank you very much. Good afternoon again. Thanks very much for having me here today. My name is David Cheatwood. I work at a firm called First Tryon Advisors. We serve as the county's financial advisor. So we help you with long-term financial planning and the debt issuance process. So Denise invited me here today just to talk through some upcoming projects that the county's considering and your ability to fund those projects with debt. Before we get into that, I wanted just to give you a snapshot of the county's current debt position, and then we can get into the future projects here. So starting on this page, as of the end of this fiscal year, so in 2 months, as of June 30, 2024, the county will have approximately $144 million of general obligation bond debt outstanding. Please note that excludes the debt you've issued on behalf of some of your fire districts over time. This is just county-specific debt, countywide debt. Of that $144 million, approximately $86.7 million was approved by referendum, voter-approved debt, and the balance of $57.3 million was issued under your constitutional 8% debt limit. Quick reminder on that, I'll reference that again here as we go through it, but under the state constitution, you all are allowed to issue general obligation bond debt without voter approval up to an amount of 8% of total assessed value in the county. So you've got referendum debt, there's no limit on that. How much you can issue, 8% debt, you've got a limit based on 8% of your total assessed value. You pay for that debt from a variety of millages. The bulk of it, you'll see that first grouping there, or actually it's not the bulk, but a good amount, $65 million you pay from your debt service millage levy. That's 3.4 mils in fiscal '24. The county levied in terms of debt service to repay that first grouping of debt. The middle group there is repaid from a separate millage, your real property purchase millage rate that is levied. That finances approximately $72 million of that outstanding GO debt. And then you have a little bit of some of the outstanding series that's paid from some separate revenues that come from Bluffton Parkway taxes and missions taxes, I believe. It's a small portion of some of those, 2 of those series of bonds. It totals about $6.5 million. When we look at it, what I just went through was total principal amount of the debt outstanding. When we look at principal plus interest or debt service, this is the picture of each of those 3 different buckets. And today, I'm going to focus mainly on that, primarily on that top left bucket. That is your debt service millage. That's the 3.4 mils you levy currently. And so you'll see from a debt service perspective, principal plus interest in fiscal year 2025 coming up, you all will pay a little over $9 million in debt service. You do have a decline in that overall structure, a drop off in that structure, and that's naturally going to create some capacity to issue new debt, which we'll be talking about here in a couple slides, and mitigating the impact on your millage rate there. So that's the current snapshot of your outstanding debt and your debt service structure. So when we talk about ability to issue debt, there's 2 different ways we look at that. The first is what is your legal ability to issue debt, and that's your 8% capacity. And so again, looking at your total assessed value for fiscal '24, it was approximately $2.65 billion. That makes your constitutional debt limit $212 million. Referencing back to one of the prior slides, your total 8% debt outstanding is $57 million. So currently you have capacity, legal capacity to issue $155 million of general obligation bonds without seeking additional voter approval. And we've got a bar chart there, assuming your assessed value grows over time, which it has been. As you pay down debt, that capacity grows. Of course, if you issue new debt under that limit, it'll eat into some of that capacity, and we'll show you what the picture looks like with some different assumptions here. So working with Denise here, we've got a list of potential projects that the county's considering to fund, and we've grouped these into a couple of different buckets. The first is just county-specific projects. You'll see the listing there. The main or anchor project is a new public works building. Again, I believe these are all just estimated amounts of $45 million. You'll see an EMS station, tax software, equipment vehicles, ferry embarkation, I think is how you pronounce that, embarkation points, and this catch-all for some miscellaneous smaller projects there. The total amount of those county projects for purposes of today's discussion and the analysis you'll see is $68.3 million. In addition, and I know some of the prior presentations today reference these, there's other entities in the county that are requesting funding from the county, and so we have, for purposes of this analysis, $6 million for a new convocation center for USCB, $6 million for a new workforce facility for TCL, and then $10 million in the aggregate for 2 projects for the hospital. And so with these capital projects in mind, I want to go through kind of the second avenue of you have the capacity to issue the debt, the legal capacity. Let's talk about the repayment sources behind that. Do you have the existing resources to repay that debt, or do you need to look at other additional resources here? So, again, going specifically to the county first, you all, as I mentioned, you levy 3.4 mills, or you did in fiscal '24. Your value of a mill is approximately $2.65 million. And so based on that, in fiscal '24, you will bring in about $9.19 million that has to go to pay debt service on general obligation bonds. Assuming, again, the growth in the value of the mill, like you've seen over time, we've assumed a conservative growth rate of 2%. In the upcoming fiscal year, if you kept your millage levy level at 3.4 mills, you would generate $9.37 million that could go to pay debt service on your existing and any proposed GO bonds. In addition, one thing to note, that third bullet there under the county, you all have a debt service fund balance that's very typical. Almost all counties and cities as well that levy debt service millage typically carry a balance in that debt service fund. It's good to do that just in case, again, the property tax revenues don't come in quite as budgeted. You have a little buffer there. Your buffer has grown to about $18 million. And so one thing we can look at in issuing new debt is to basically upsize an initial principal payment to bring that debt service fund balance more in line with a more reasonable cushion there. And so that's something, again, we can look at when we get to structuring the debt itself. But that is an available revenue source to pay for general obligation bond debt service. Looking at the hospital here, currently you levy 0.4 mills on behalf of the hospital. And so based, again, on the same value of a mill, $2.65 million, that generates about a little over $1 million in property tax revenues. With the reassessment that became effective in fiscal '24, this generates about $200,000 of additional revenue per year that you could apply to pay debt service on that $10 million borrowing going forward. And you'll see some numbers behind that as well. For TCL and USCB, you have a higher education millage levy of 2.2 mills. It's split equally between the two, 1.1 for each. And so similar to the hospital there, that is generating about $400,000 of excess revenues above and beyond what they've gotten in prior years with the reassessment. And so if you split that up evenly, again, you've got about $200,000 that you could apply towards debt service on their projects without changing in any of the millage rates. And Denise is going to follow me up here with some suggested tweaks on the millage rate, reallocation of some of these millages here, millage rates. So bear with me on this next slide. I've got a chart on the next page that's a lot easier to see, but I want to at least walk you through how we're doing this analysis specific to the county's borrowing. And so this is the $68.3 million of projects that have been identified here. So taking this chart left to right, we have the year that you levied the tax, so fall of 2024. That money that you bring in, by January of '25 is going to be used to pay the debt service that comes due in 2025. And so if you keep your debt service millage levy level at 3.4 mills and your value of a mill grows by 2% to $2.7 million, you will collect approximately $9,374,000 based on these assumptions here. In addition, because baked into this analysis, you have those two portions of the two GO bonds that you use some Bluffton Parkway related emission taxes and fees for. We have that column there. You'll see that actually rolls off in a couple of years because that related debt matures in a couple of years. But you have that coming in as a revenue stream. So what we're comparing is the millage collections and those other revenues coming in versus your outflows, which are going to be your debt service. Your existing debt service there, which we've noted, if you look in debt service paid in 2025, it'll be about $12.3 million, and then it drops to 8.6 and drops a little bit thereafter. So again, you've got capacity, going back to one of those earlier slides, a drop off in your existing debt service. If you all borrowed $68.3 million, repaid it over a 25-year term with level payments per year, similar to mortgage style repayment, level principal and interest payments at an interest rate of 4%. If you issued debt today in today's market, you'd be around a 3.75%. So a little bit of cushion in there, thinking, again, if you look at borrowing this fall, didn't want to add too much cushion in, but a 4% interest rate, your annual debt service would be $4.33 million per year. So we're adding the existing and the proposed. That gets us to our total debt service. and we're comparing our total revenues to our total debt service, you will notice in the surplus, annual surplus deficit column, there are some deficits, but that's intentional because if you look at the far right column, going back to that fund balance that you would have in the debt service fund, we can utilize some of those funds to cover those shortfalls in those years. Alternatively, we can upsize the first payment more, bring that fund balance down immediately, and then not have any shortfalls in the future years. There's different ways to do it. It'll get to approximately the same result there. But the punchline of this chart, and again, the visual's a little bit easier to see with the, on this next slide here, the green line are your revenues coming in, that's your debt service millage, plus those admissions taxes and fees, which is why it drops a little bit from 26 to 27. And then the bars are your existing and proposed debt service. So if you look at that table in conjunction with your debt service fund balance table below, again, the goal is to make sure you have enough money in your debt service fund to pay the debt service, which you do, so you stay positive. So the punchline coming out of this portion of the presentation is the county can fund $68.3 million worth of projects with no impact on your debt service millage levy. Now, one thing, Denise, I'm going to steal your thunder for a second. You may say, hey, let's move a little bit from the 3.4 mils to service some of this other, some of these other projects, and I won't steal it any more than that. That's right. And so what she proposes will not impact this. You still have, whether it's 3.4, 3.2 for a year, you'll have the ability to fund that. So checking those two boxes, you have the constitutional capacity to issue 68.3 million, and you have the revenues, existing revenues to repay it. So all good news on that front. So I want to take you through those other three entities there from the hospital side. Again, if we assume that you borrow on their behalf or provide them with $10 million, you could issue that as a part of the same general obligation bond under your 8% capacity. If you kept that same repayment term of 25 years, that same interest rate of 4%, if you look in the chart, you'll see proposed, that's proposed debt service, $635,000 approximately per year. However, going back to the earlier note with the excess revenues available, $200,000, we are short about $433,000 in order to fund $10 million of payments. And so Denise may address that here after the presentation as well. So going back to some of those two key areas, you have the capacity, because even if you layered in an additional $10 million, chart on the right, you still have enough 8% debt limit to cover that. But from a repayment perspective, you would need to come up with some other funds in addition to just that $200,000 that comes from the existing levy. USCB and TCL will have a very similar story, so I'll go through USCB first. Same presentation here, method. $6 million is what we had in there being funded. I know the earlier presentation talked about a $7.5 million project, and then Denise stood up and said $6 million from bond, $1.5 million from other sources there. But you'll see, just looking at the 1.1 mils allocated to USCB from that higher education fund, $6 million over 25 years is $380,000. So we're short $180,000. But again, I think Denise will address that shortfall, and a slight reallocation of some of your other mills would be able to cover that $6 million. So between the existing millage and a reallocation, you should be able to fund $6 million for USCB. You still stay within your debt limit. Again, we've got ample debt limit there. Even including that, you're down to $70 million of capacity. Same exact analysis for TCL because it's $6 million as well as the assumption in here, the same millage rate, so the same excess $200,000. And again, to address the shortfall, a reallocation of an additional 0.1 mil will be sufficient to cover that. And if you did everything then, so the chart on the right, you're 68.5 million, 10 million for the hospital, 6 million for USCB, 6 million for TCL. That leaves you with an 8%, remaining 8% capacity of just over $64 million. You don't want to take that all the way down, bare bones. 64 million is a good cushion. You'll have the ability to react if other projects come up and issue debt. And so that still remains a good level of capacity there. I know I went through a lot of numbers. Happy to go back on any of those projects or answer any questions you may have. And And again, Denise will follow up with some of the millage adjustments, reallocations here.
Anyone have a question for Mr. Chair?
Just maybe when Denise comes forward, we did live through a hurricane. And I know, I mean, this takes into account, we're not exceeding our debt capacity, so we have a buffer. I feel comfortable, very comfortable with your presentation. Yeah. Even if we had, hopefully never again, but if we had some disaster happen.
Right.
Okay.
So, good cushion.
What percentage of debt do most counties carry?
That is a good question that I don't,
I'm sure it varies, but just kind of on average, I didn't know if there's.
it does, good question. I can definitely come back to you on that. I would say, looking at your debt profile, just off the top of my head, you are not outsized from a debt perspective, and to me, it really gets back, given that you levy a separate millage to pay for the debt, if you have the revenues to support it, not that any debt amount is fine, but if you have the revenues there to support it, the actual amount of debt that you carry is of less importance if you have the revenues to pay it.
Now, I saw that revenue chart, with the green line going up. What happens if things go down?
2008.
And so that's where maintaining a good level of balance in that debt service fund balance will be necessary, and I'll go back to that slide there. And so, really for the next, what this does, assuming a 2% growth in the value of a mill there, your 3.4 mills should be sufficient and cover you for the foreseeable future. If you see a dip in that, the two options are, one, increase the debt service millage from 3.4 to whatever level is necessary to do that. Again, this could limit, I said there's two, that's the main way to address that. If it's not growing by 2% or if it actually goes down, once you issue the debt, you're gonna have to pay it back, and so you would increase the millage to do that, reallocate millage from elsewhere. But what this would do is, assuming no further increases, for the next several years, absent growth above and beyond that 2%, which again is conservative, you should get a higher level of growth based on your history there. But it will eat into most of your capacity from a repayment source in terms of additional debt. So if you come back a year from now and say, we've got another $50 million project, I would tell you, well, I can't fit it into the 3.4 mills. You're gonna need additional revenues to pay for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What if the stock market crashed like 1929? Then what would happen?
Well, we saw, not quite to that level, but with the Great Recession, we saw revenues across the board drop. Property tax revenues declined. You saw that with, you're going to experience that typically with a reassessment or, development that's pending may not happen. And so, again, goes back to the earlier question on once you issue the debt, you have to repay that. So if you see a big recession, property tax values drop, then you would need to increase the millage to pay for that, for that debt. So again, kind of looking at where you are from a debt service fund, and at least in the, based on recent history, your 2% growth is conservative given how much you've grown over the years, but that would be the remedy there, is to increase the property tax rate to cover it.
Anyone else? All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So now we turn to our finance department, Ms. Christmas and Ms. Althoff, and they will give us a first look at fiscal '25 budget.
Thanks, David, for coming. Appreciate it. Hey, y'all.
Hello.
Do you have the? Oh, it should be well, they have this. I handed it out.
Yeah, we have.
So it's just a recap. I want to start off with a recap. It's just 4 slides. It'll be real quick. Before we get into all that, I started assisting with the budget last year and then this year, And then just one person, just one department head, I want to give a shout out to them. Not that I love all of the department heads, but one of them, she is so frugal and conservative and cautious with her budget. It's Miss Jerry Rosenau. She never, asks for anything ever, and anyway, I just was thinking about her earlier, so I just want to give a shout out to her. Thank you for being cautious and with taxpayer money. Do you have it, Brenda? Okay. So I think I handed this to all of you, just to recap and to highlight specifically the funds that have millage attached to them, because, those are the ones that we're gonna be talking about when we set the millage in the fall. So the general fund budget, this year, the impacts for the general fund budget are the comp and class study, as you've heard from our HR director earlier, the chart of accounts conversion that we did back in the fall had an effect, of course, as you know, on our general fund budget when we had to do that budget amendment, to increase our budget. We merged some funds that should have been classified as general fund funds into there. So we also discovered, Christine did, in her internal auditing, that over time, our predecessors, for at least over 10 years that we could go back, we've been classifying revenue incorrectly. And we've been receiving checks for reimbursements of certain items and putting those deposits, we're crediting our expenditure accounts instead of putting them in a revenue account. So if you look at our financial statements, you wouldn't see as much revenue, and you wouldn't see as much expenditures either. So it looks like, it was a misstatement, definitely, of our funds and our financial statements. So we've corrected that, and that has caused an increase in certain line items in these budgets. But the increase in the expenditure is offset by the increase in the revenue. So they've gone up together. So it's covered there. So no alarm. The capital improvement fund, the topics are GO bond issuance is what we're looking at this year. And we also,
Hang on a second. Yes, Mr.
Yes, sir.
I don't really understand a thing you just said. Slow down a little for me.
Okay.
So what did you explain what you just said? Because you can't credit both sides or debit both sides, income and revenue. So what happened?
Okay, so if we billed for services that we provided and we received a check in the mail from the person we billed, we've already debited our expenditure account for that service. We've billed them. They gave us a check in the mail, and we have been crediting that same expenditure line item to where it would almost zero it out, where it would show no expenditure even happened. So instead of doing it that way from now on, we've created the appropriate revenue account to record that revenue coming in. So the expenditure stays as a debit in the expenditure line item, and then the credit is to the revenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome. Sorry.
No, that's
I
great.
do talk fast. I'm sorry, Mr. Glover.
It's okay.
Okay, so the capital improvement fund, the bond issuance is what we're looking at to affect that fund this year. Bond proceeds will go into that fund should you vote on that bond issuance. And also, we changed the capital improvement fund from the original 1040 to what's now a 4,000. It'll be 4,000 will be the fund number. We had to do that in order to establish a multi-year fund because projects are definitely multi-year. We're not completing projects within 12 months. So this allows for the funds, the budget to roll over, as well as the encumbrances or the purchase orders will roll over automatically now since we checked that box as a multi-year fund. So balances in those projects will roll over, the encumbrances, POs will roll over with it. No headache there, it should be smooth. Solve a lot of headaches at the end of the fiscal year. Economic Development Fund, we talked about that earlier with Mr. O'Toole. Land acquisition for commercial and industrial site development, possibly. So the impact there would be a mill. Higher education funds, TCL and USCB for workforce training and the Convocation Center, Beaufort Memorial Hospital. They originally asked for 13 million for workforce housing, 3 million for that, and then 10 million for the construction of a new hospital. And we'll talk about millage and GO bonds, and talk about the transfer of mills to support these projects and the bonds. So next slide, please. Okay, so the general fund has departments that have increases, which I just discussed, due to the chart of accounts conversion, so we're correcting those. A couple of the departments, the main ones that are impacted are the sheriffs, the county attorney, and risk management. So we've made corrections there, and they've increased their budgets accordingly. Capital Improvement Fund, just talked about that. Economic Development Fund, well, I've talked about all of this, hadn't I? We're just going to skip right over this. Why waste time? Okay, so here's the main thing I want to discuss today. And you guys, we don't set millage until the fall, but our budgets are based upon millage. So we need to talk about this now. So county operations, I'm proposing in the blue and white chart to the left there, these are the funds with millage. You'll see our current millage total is at 59.5 mils. The proposed is 59.8. I know it's 0.3 of a mil increase, but that's just tentatively. I think we can remain flat. I'm watching our revenues come in. They're coming in strong, and we might can finagle some of these to where we can keep our millage flat. And that's what I know you probably all want. So I'm going to try real hard to watch our revenue coming in so we can come up with a good plan and a solid budget.
Question
Yes.
before you start to interject.
Yep.
Where the outside agencies that have all come in requesting funding, does that come out of the county operations or where is
No,
it?
it does not. So the outside agencies who've requested funding, oh, wait a minute, which outside agencies?
Like just all the ones that come in?
Not TCL and USCB.
No, all the rest.
The other ones. Okay, so yes, they do come out of the general fund. Yes, they do. The only ones that do not are the ones listed here. Yes, sir. So, yes, ma'am?
Another quick question. I noticed the debt service, is that reduced because we're reducing our debt service? It goes from 3.4 to 3.2, or?
Yes and no. We're going to be adding to our debt service, but, David, you can buy us a year, right? A year without payment, right?
Yes.
Okay, we can, if we issue debt in the fall, we may have to pay an interest payment in May, but in principal won't be due till fall, or will the whole payment differ? Yes. Yes.
Honestly, you can still afford to pay some principal in the spring, even if it went down to 3.2 mils.
Yep.
Whether you're 3.2 or 4, we
Okay,
can structure it for.
there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my proposal right now. I'm hoping to get it back down to 59.5 so we don't have a tax increase. But that's the revenue that's projected to be generated this year, and fiscal year '24 projected revenue, and then the fiscal year '25 projected revenue. You can see the increases. Now, I have noticed that when we set the millage last fall and sent out our tax notices after reassessment and whatnot, the value of the mill was estimated to be at $2,650,000. What I'm seeing right now come in, it is projecting at $2,704,000. And it looks like it's going to be rising. So that's positive, and that's good information to have when we finalize these budgets.
So the county operations, going back to Mr. Bartholomew, includes these outside requests. Some of them were 30%, some 112%, whatever.
Mhm.
It includes their asks.
Their asks.
Not
their
a cap.
request. That's right. And so we have a file with what I would recommend you funding them at. Brenna, are we finished with this one? Hold on. I think you got one more slide. So I know Carolyn Wallace and Eric Larson, they've finished their capital improvement plan, and I've put the link up here. I can email you or Brenna can email you all this, so you can just click on that link so you can have that capital improvement plan if you don't already have it. That, I'm just letting you know that because that's important as we move forward and discuss the capital improvement fund. Okay, so your question was,
So my question was,
Yes.
this is assuming we're giving them everything they asked.
okay, gotcha.
Not capping anything.
All right, so Brenna, do you have the, Valerie, which one is it with the summary?
Yeah.
The outside age, the recommended funding.
Yeah, that's the general fund.
It should be the general fund tab.
Yeah.
And while she's looking for that, I want to go back a little bit to the millage. So when Mr. Cheekwood got up here and gave his presentation on the bond issuance, and I know we put 6 million out there for USCB, but they never told me a dollar amount, so I just, matched them with TCL to be fair for higher education. So we don't, once we talk to them more, I guess we'll know if they're actually asking for funds. So with the hospitals request, like he said, there is a little gap there in their debt service payments, and versus what we're generating in revenue on that fund with their existing millage. And that's why I proposed to increase the hospitals fund by 0.2 to cover that debt service. The same with TCL, with a 0.1 mil increase to cover that gap. And you see, we can afford to move some millage around, so I think that's very doable. Okay, so this slide here is our outside agency slide, the requested funding, which it comes from the general fund. So you have column C, their requests, column D, the recommendation, disregard the highlight. I think I updated and did not send y'all a newer version. So that highlight just goes back to the original 495,000, so just disregard that. So those are my recommendations. We have to think about the county and what the county's needs are. What are our needs? What are our citizens' needs? And keep that in mind, I believe, first, before we grant all the requests from the outside agencies. I think we need to be mindful of our own and what we want and envision. Those are my recommendations.
Good.
If there are any specifically you want to talk about, we can talk about them.
No, you're gonna send this to everybody.
She sent
And I
it.
have, yeah, yes, sir, and I
You know what
have.
might be easy, Ms. Christmas, is if you put all these documents in a Dropbox.
Okay.
Instead of everybody opening 5 different emails, maybe throw them in one Dropbox and.
We can do that.
I
Yeah.
just think it would be easier for everybody, because we've got like 5 emails.
And I think I actually accidentally responded to Alice today, but I would like a printed copy.
Okay, yeah, so we'll print budget books up for whoever wants a printed copy too. And I don't know if now's the time to do this, or if you want us to just collectively put all these files in a Dropbox for you to look at between now and first reading, or do you want to talk about everything right now?
Now, I think it's essential that each of us who want to go through the documents, because we may have specific questions about why did you recommend this?
Okay.
Or what is this? I don't understand the account description because it doesn't make sense, those kinds of things,
I agree.
okay?
So I appreciate this, that's on the screen, you know, what, maybe a new ASCAP this year, next year, and then capping at 5%. And, I mean, everyone on here knows I say the same thing. We have needs in this county. We just got dropped a $13 million pier on our head. But we have needs, and we can't keep giving all our money away unless we want to raise millage.
Yeah, that's right.
It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, that's our
And this
choice.
would cause a raise in millage. You could think about it that way if we fully funded what everyone asks for. I don't think that's good practice. I mean, I'm very generous, when it comes to things like that, but to be fiscally responsible, we need to be mindful and to think about what our priorities are.
Do you have any sense of what other counties do as far as all these direct subsidies? Do they just give them what they want?
It depends on their general fund revenue in any given year. And the many years I've been doing this, we you know, we look at them and we ask them for their annual report to see what they actually spent the money on. And then we make that determination based on, okay, what you're spending our money, the taxpayers' money on, does it make sense? Is it giving back to the county? Is it doing good, you know, for citizenship and whatnot? And then, there are times where we kept their funding flat for many years and, you know, increased it as we saw fit, case-by-case basis too. Did never treat all of them the same, and then there were some years where we treated them all the same. Maybe gave them all a 1% or a 2% increase, or if we had cuts, like back in 2008 and 2009 when there were furloughs, you know, those outside agencies did not get funding in that particular year or those particular years.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to make a comment. I remember when we didn't fund TCL and USCB because of the 2000, I mean, I wasn't on council then. Gerald Dawson might remember, we weren't funding them in anything, and that's when they came up with the mill when we got healthy again.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
it made sense,
Mhm.
yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, otherwise, if we have nothing else, we are adjourned at 5:07. And I don't have the
Denise, thank you
gavel,
so
it's down
much.
there.
You're welcome.
Brian Hart,
You're
thank you
welcome.
for meeting with
I will tell you this, I forgot to say, I'm sorry. So the general fund we're not balanced with the general fund. It has about $4.3 or $5 million in revenue. That's a good thing, but we were waiting on the comp class study. So that money could go toward part of that. So, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, and we also have ATEX funds.
And
You
we
gave
have
us
that too. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So.
She gave us the balance in ATEX. It's a lot.